Sorry, you were waiting for us. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The echo is quite bad. Echo. So, at least you get to sit. The last one, I had to stand for 3 hours. Dia sama macam kena detention class masa school assembly. We'll start. I think I just realized how remote this place is. Because dia tempat gym bertendang. So, the sound is okay kan? Because the echo is bad. So for us yang on the stage, it's like dalam gua. So, thanks for coming. So basically it's your floor. Izzah and Izzah will say a few words, and then mics will go around, and whatever you want to ask, we will answer. Izzah doesn't look pleased, but yeah. So, so the mic's to you, and then I think we can start the ball rolling. The sooner we start, the more we can address, yeah. And then as we go along, we can pick up questions, it's echo and also interference. We can pick up anything from Facebook as well. Do you want to say a few words?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Terima kasih Raf dan hadirin hadrat, all of you that have made time today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya fikir salah menunggu Parlimen bubar kerana seluruh Malaysia termasuklah ahli-ahli Parlimen sekarang dalam keadaan kita sebenarnya, I think it's probably one of the few times in our history that we really don't know when elections are to be held, despite the rumour mongering ataupun kenyataan yang keluar dari masa ke semasa oleh Perdana Menteri. Dan ini mungkin diakibatkan pelbagai krisis termasuklah dalam UMNO sendiri, because as you know the Prime Minister is the VP of his party. But I'm very happy to be part of this session when we, Raf and I and a few others, were discussing how exactly should we start the ball rolling bila memulakan Ayuh Malaysia. Dan kalau kami pun kadang-kadang letih, lemau nak dengar ucapan dan celoteh daripada ahli politik, apatah lagi orang muda di luar sana. So we really wanted to have a session to listen, untuk mendengar, dan mungkin kita berbincang sebenarnya bukan sesi soal jawab semata-mata, kerana kalau kita harap ahli politik tahu segala-galanya, of course you know they don't, tapi kalau mereka berlagak as if they know the answer to everything, that's also a problem. Jadi penting untuk kita as we plan out the future. And I wanted to say this, Raf. I remember, once I was almost 18, and that particular year, 1998, ada krisis. Dan krisis ini kita selalu merasakan apa yang berlaku dalam dunia politik mungkin tak beri kesan kepada kehidupan kita. Tapi sebagai seorang yang baru habis SPM dan memulakan semester pertama peringkat tertiary, it will affect and it has affected my life. So clearly today you're looking at a future that's quite uncertain. Before, we don't talk enough about mental health, but the pandemic really has opened up this Pandora's box. Kita semua merasa tekanannya, kita semua hidup dalam zaman norma baru where everything's changed really. Since before the pandemic, we try to go back to business as usual, but the more that the economy, the assistance, the planned development by the government goes back to business as usual, the more difficult it is for us. Jadi pada saya memang penting untuk kita mengubah segala-galanya dan teras yang kita masukkan dalam ayuh Malaysia itu hanyalah 5 because it's just the beginning. He would love to quote Churchill, just the end of the beginning, the end of the beginning, but nowhere near where we should be. So I would say, feeling that way, one of the worst things in life is to feel a sense of utter despair and hopelessness. And I believe we have so much to hope for, and I look forward mendengar dan juga bertukar fikiran sebelum saya bergegas ke Merebuk untuk ceramah di sana bersama YB Nurin, dan insyaAllah that we will make this Saturday a fruitful one, because I'm looking forward. It's just that yelah, Rafizi pilih jin tendang mana tapak kan, tapi tak apalah, kita ada dan insyaAllah we'll make the most out of it. So thank you again for spending your Saturday with us. Termasuklah ibu dan ayah yang memaksa anak-anak. Saya tak pandang, so saya neutral, membawa pengundi kali pertama untuk hadir di sini. Sekian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a control freak now. So can I know where the speakers are? I mean, bukan speaker ni, the sound system. There's only one, There's only one, because do you wanna test a bit so that it doesn't really bounce off the wall? Yeah. In a different life, I would have been a sound engineer. It's a lot worse. It's a lot worse. So that's already the best direction. That's already the best direction. Okay, that's fine. Because it does really bounce off semua. I don't know you guys kat bawah lah. It's almost like in apa nama ni? Doctor Strange punya multiverse here. It does mess up my head, because it's bouncing. So anyway, so let's pick the first ball rolling. Any? Yeah, for once, yeah. It's just there's a mic on the floor, and okay. Do you want to pass the mic? Just maybe we get 2 or 3 questions, and then Izzah and I respond. It doesn't have to be questions. It can also be opinion, and we'll see what we want to. Hopefully, it's not media yet. If media wants to ask something, maybe at the end. All right.
Hello. Okay. I come here by assuming that I can give a short speech lah. Right. I just came back from the youth event under Muda, just like opposition politicians. Sadiq was also speaking about integrity. Right. During scenario of Bumi Putra in rural Sabah failing to get education allocation while some elites got millions in contracts. Of course, this was... You can't hear. Hello? Hello? Is this okay? This is okay. Right. Right. I just came back from a youth event at the Muda. Right. Just like any politicians, he draws scenario of Bumi Putra in rural Sabah failing to get education allocation while some elites get contracts worth millions, basically. So, but then he got thundering applause, and but during PH time as well, I mean, tycoons including like Mahathir's offspring also get like, which are aligned to Sadiq, also gets like sweet deal as well. You see, I feel that this is like the nature of politic itself, and as I know lah, as an aspiring innovator itself, I write things during PH time to Liu Chintong for defense proposal and things like that. It goes unheeded. He never puts me in any agency. He never tries to contact any agencies. I still feel the same thing going around. Basically, BN, PH, or PN is just like the same all over going around. Maybe a little bit on the integrity side and corruption side, maybe that's more on the, maybe it touches more on, I don't really feel there will be much changes basically. You see, is including for example, like Sadiq talks about, government needs to go through the like everything like to be meritocracy and then the best people in the government. But then we definitely know like there's about like 95 to 90 or 80 to 95% are boobies, and that will go against, if we start saying these kind of things, this will be detrimental to Pakatan as well in their pursuit for the votes, you see. So one thing you say like that is we contradictory, and not everybody will be really happy with the want to change the status quo. I, as an innovator, sometimes I feel that rather than trying to change the status quo, we just stick to the way. If I, as an innovator, for example, I need to bribe someone, I'll just bribe someone and just follow I just follow the political course at that time, rather than to restructure it, or to change. I think most businesses also tend to think that way. You see, I know you might not like the way I put things in, but that's my perspective, really.
It's an opinion.
Yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get a few, and then I mean, sorry, your name again? Just
Lie.
Lie. We will go around, and then because otherwise we'll take about half an hour to answer one. So by the end of it, so next one.
Hello. My name is Shah. So I mean to give us some opinions or about kita new policy yang kita kurang. New city. Okay, opening a new city is a policy yang saya rasa a new city opening, like kita nak jadikan membangunkan kota yang baru. As we know, macam mungkin rakan-rakan sekarang ini, kita sebelum datang ke sini kita banyak menghadapi masalah jam yang teruk. Jadi saya rasa berpendapat pembangunan sekarang ini bukan lagi seperti tahun 80s yang lebih tertumpu kepada Kuala Lumpur sahaja. So saya yakin ramai anak muda yang ingin menetap luar dari Kuala Lumpur, tetapi peluang pekerjaan ataupun opportunities itu kurang berbanding di Kuala Lumpur. Dan isu ini telah menjadikan Kuala Lumpur jadi satu-satunya isu kemiskinan bandar yang sangat luas. Masalah itu semakin lama semakin mendalam, menyebabkan salah satunya menjadikan Kuala Lumpur ini is not livable city. And it will take like 3 to 5 hours every day terperangkap di dalam kesesakan lalu lintas. Yang benda itu apabila kita productivity yang menjadikan satu isu yang berkait dan jadi masalah yang lebih besar. Jadi polisi-polisi baru seperti tumpuan menghentikan pembangunan di Kuala Lumpur, menumpukan pembangunan ataupun livable city ke arah selatan ataupun utara tanah air. Ini antara salah satu polisi yang saya rasa kurang dibangunkan oleh kebanyakan politician. Jadi saya yakin, saya rasa salah satu bandar yang sekarang ini tengah mendapat permintaan ramai ialah di Terengganu ataupun Kuala Terengganu. Saya yakin ramai anak-anak muda kalau dah pergi ke kawasan di Terengganu, dia orang sangat tertarik di mana dia orang ada pantai sepanjang perjalanan. Jadi saya nampak kemiskinan bandar yang berlaku di KL ini disebabkan salah satu faktor ialah kita terlampau tertumpu di KL. Sebagai contoh, lebuh raya baru yang dibuka iaitu SUKE yang baru-baru ini teruk. Jadi penyelesaian sebagai orang isu rapat berkaitan public transport ataupun penambahan konsesi lebuh raya baru, saya rasa itu hanya menyebabkan masalah livable city ini terus meningkat. Jadi apa saya harap, mungkin politician harus ada satu polisi yang mana kita nak membuka peluang menjadikan bandar-bandar lain ini lagi mempunyai peluang pekerjaan ataupun opportunities yang seimbang dengan KL. Sebab apabila kita zaman dahulu, tahun 80-an 90-an ramai yang ingin migrate ke Kuala Lumpur semata-mata untuk peluang pekerjaan. But nowadays orang yang berpindah ke Kuala Lumpur itu sendiri rasa tertekan dengan kesesakan dan masalah sosial yang berlaku sekarang ini. Jadi soalan saya ataupun my opinion is, saya nak share opinion tadi berkaitan dengan livable city dan juga kemiskinan bandar, dan juga apakah ada salah satu dalam konsep Ayuh Malaysia ini untuk kita mengembangkan ataupun satu polisi untuk kita membangunkan bandar yang boleh menjadi seakan-akan Kuala Lumpur, menjadi peluang pekerjaan di luar dari Kuala Lumpur. Itu saja.
Maybe we take another one. Satu lagi. Ada satu lagi di tengah. Kemudian saya dengan Izzah boleh.
Hi, good afternoon. Is it better if I ask in English or Bahasa Melayu?
Mana-mana boleh. Saya dengan Izzah boleh faham Bahasa Melayu dan Bahasa Inggeris. You can try in Mandarin, but our answer will be God knows what.
Sorry, 我不会唱华语. Okay, I think I'll just speak in English then. My name is Shiram. First of all, Shiram with the M. Yeah. Thanks for having this town hall. I have two questions. The first is around PKR as a party and how you are going to select quality candidates, because I think for a very long time people have been looking at 2008 and post 2008, and there's always been the criticism that the opposition does not have enough quality candidates as MPs. In 2008, the joke was you can put a monkey and people will vote for them, right? But then you've had people like Loh Guoban, you've had Zulkifli Nordin, you've had all kinds of characters who don't necessarily represent what PKR claims to stand for, becoming MPs and then doing don't know what in parliament, right? So now we have the anti-hopping law, so you don't have people hopefully not hopping. But then the next step is, as MPs, we want quality MPs, people who can advance ideas, people who are learned, people who can understand root causes and question, bills brought forth in parliament and not just be a rubber stamp of setuju or tolak, We want MPs who, so what's PKR going to do to make voters trust that the people that they vote for are actually going to be useful in parliament and not just monkeys making noise? That's my first question, right? And my second question is related to like some of the concerns raised by that gentleman over there and this gentleman, is like the policies, like what kind of policies are you going to bring forward? I use example, the environment. PKR has been in power in Selangor since 2008. But by and large, all politicians in Malaysia seem to, when it comes to environment, by and large, they're the same. They say one thing and they do another thing in power. Look at the current Menteri Besar of Selangor, Aminuddin Shari. It seems like since he's become Menteri Besar, he's like in a hurry to just destroy all the forest reserves in Selangor. And nobody in PKR is speaking. Activists speaking out are from places like PSM, environmental NGOs. Zero politicians are speaking out. Zero elected representatives are speaking out. I've written to my own member of parliament. I've written to my Adun for Selangor, who's a member of the EXCO. Silence, nothing, right? So what kind of policies are we going to put forth now that there's finally some awakening on the need to take care of the environment with the floods and overdevelopment and, poor quality of life in Selangor? What is PKR going to do to put forth policies and hold their elected representatives to those policies to take care of the environment? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. I guess I'll start with maybe the last one, since Sharan asked. Now, keadilan as a party, yes. The only way I look at it is, of course, in terms of the growth of our own organization since we came to be in 1999, April. And I remember when we had deliberations, even discussions with DAP leaders, every party would have to go through, I think, quite a serious internal crisis. I think with the DAP, it happened in Perak. And I actually got a lot of, I felt very reassured, because it was a difficult period, since not necessarily by our particular personal choice, not necessarily also tainted by the Reformasi generation who joined Keadilan as our first ever political party. Of course, the pain is also felt by us because you join an organization, you don't want to face a situation where nila setitik rosak sungai susu sebelanga. But that's what actually will happen, and it's part of history. However, that led to a few reforms, including the direct elections, including to make sure at the division level, there's ways to basically get the best. And it wasn't easy lah, because once you have direct elections, you have to balance between those who are better qualified or better experienced versus those who were just chosen by the by. I would also add on, in terms of what we had done within the confines of our own ability was to really utilize the party elections to pick the most trusted among us. So that internal strife shouldn't be lost upon anyone, where from the very beginning, there was quite a push against the pro-reformists and the ones who are carrying the background or legacy of UMNO and political negative or the bad culture of political patronage. So it's an ongoing struggle, but I'm very proud, alhamdulillah, at least the Reformasi generation did survive the last Keadilan elections. And it wasn't, I think, rough. I don't think many thought you would make it, but it was really important that he did, and it was secured through the results of the party elections. Moving to Selangor, I actually joined the committee. It's an adaptation climate committee that was chaired by YBH. And yes, I think Selangor's big challenges, and again, speaking from a member of parliament from Penang, Selangor does face a lot of challenges, which is partly legacy, but also because you have a polity that's far more aware, that's far more clear in terms of where Selangor should lead as the most industrialized state in the country. So for Penang, the focus was more on, we proposed through Think City application to get the Global Adaptation Fund. Because when you talk about heat-related stress, as well as floods and other extreme climate changes, is adaptive changes that you have to introduce, not the greenhouse gas reduction, because that actually traps us when top 6 global polluters are the ones that should be paying or doing more in that regard. And the other bits that you mentioned, which is urban greening, protecting the mangrove and paya bakau, as well as virgin forests. These are very crucial elements in the adaptation aspect. So for me, there are changes, but the Selangor government will have to do more, looking at certain agreements that have been inked 30 or 20 years prior, as well as disclose more information to the people. For example, the Sri Muda catastrophe. There were, of course, publications that showcased it was never meant for development of a city, talking about healthy cities in the first place. So what can a state government, at the end of the day, people said, we voted for you. So whether it's legacy or otherwise, you must take note and you must be vigilant in responding to people. So for me, I am part of the Climate Adaptation Committee in Selangor. We brought in Dr. Gary Teixeira, Joy Pereira, and a few other experts, purely wanting to lead the discussion, not politicians. Because as you know, whether EXCO, whether ADUN or MP, you will always have your own political considerations by virtue of voters and so on and so forth. But if you have specific query, whereabouts the particular zone, please speak to me, because I believe that as the most industrialized state, as I said, we just have to be doing far more than before. As for Penang, I think Raf and I, we've been quite vocal, and it's just very challenging to also want federal government, state governments to look at development in a different way, not just the usual pathway that we've been using so far. Now, Lai, I am really glad because I think the issue of reforms affecting agencies or the disbursement of aid, the disbursements of grant, deserves its own topic, like deserves its own agenda and step-by-step approach. I give you, for example, in terms of at the PAC, what I do is I audit the different agencies, and one of the kind of frustrations is again the fact that the agencies are not looking into really unearthing different talent pool. Yeah, there's one. It's called they are a vanilla bean producer. They moved to Penang, and for the life of me, they tried very hard to approach the different agencies at the federal level. But what happened eventually, Yayasan Inovasi finally agreed. But even though they did agree, I understand. It's like a labyrinth just to try to unlock that pool when in PH, whether in any governments, this is the challenge because you need to focus on making sure the talent among you will be able to access the aid. Now that's for innovative funds, right? For startups, for companies who have done wonders in making Malaysia, for example, they became smart farmers in producing vanilla. They're the biggest ones in Malaysia today. But how about disbursement of aid when the pandemic hit? Now the Ministry of Finance research itself showcased in last year's Laporan Ekonomi that most of it didn't reach the recipients. So it is a problem in itself. That's why I said, in terms of thinking over government, you require to make sure that hand-holding, not even hand-holding, that's what government should do, facilitate aid, is in place. My biggest concern after CPTPP has already been approved by Cabinet is that we're not taking the South Korea route, where South Korea identified all the key aid and support that was supposed to be given to all its businesses before the foreigners came in. So yes, we do have a period where you transition, grace period, but my concern is in the next 2, 3 to 5 years, if we don't stem the tide, we don't strengthen institutional government agency memory, and we don't really help the ones who are talented, not the ones who, are politically or even economically connected alone. Because there's one statement Johari gave when he was interviewed with you pre-budget. So 98% of our economy is built upon by SMEs. But the focus in the budget is always at the big corporations, which really are the top 2%, right? So similarly, in the way we look at these things, kalau kita tak fokus cara nak bagi bantuan, because ini bukan satu saja, saya cuba sendiri dalam ujian kanser untuk ujian klinikal bagi kajian kanser, Universiti Melaya atau sebagainya. Kadang-kala memang mencabar untuk mendapat dana yang sepatutnya dipermudah. Because kita nak universiti kan, jadi antara tiang utama untuk membuahkan hasil. But if you don't really ensure there are ease in getting the approval, of course following a certain benchmark, then you won't go far. So for me, it requires a strategic look. And yes, look at Pakatan, it was 22 months. I think really, yes, that time helped us, even for me as a backbencher MP, to look at the key areas where you need to really work on. Now, speaking about, this is a bit long, but speaking about even the MACC, you're talking about institutions, right? But the MACC itself, you have a head who's reluctant to get the parliament to scrutinize. What does that mean? It really means we don't have a truly professional and independent body that's able to strike fear, not in just one political party's heart. The best benchmark, a barometer of a successful SPRM, semua takut. Semua parti takut, semua mantan Perdana Menteri takut, semua pihak tak kira apa pun jawatan merasa terlalu gerun bahawa mereka boleh mendakwa pada bila-bila masa. Of course, we want the bigger shots lah to be prosecuted rather than small bits. But the point is that is a challenge that remains. Now, sikit je tentang soalan Shah. Saya setuju sangat-sangat. Antara langkah pertama saya buat selaku ahli Parlimen Perkhidmatan Tampau, I commissioned Think City. Think City is an agency under Khazanah. They do studies on how to make cities more livable. So you can look, they do actually the finding on heat stress affecting Selangor, affecting Pulau Pinang. The number one stress for all our workers in this country is not floods, it's heat stress. Lebih banyak lagi hari mengalami suhu lebih 32 darjah Celsius. So it's really impending, inhibiting your ability to work, especially outside. You will be sick, you will be really affected thanks to the heat. And for me, what Selangor has done, small steps, they've started implementing sponge city in Shah Alam, because even drainage, there's limited ability for the land or the geographical site to absorb the amount of rain that falls. So experts are advocating more cities adopt sponge city concept, termasuk protecting mangroves, urban greening, and of course virgin forestry. Dan saya rasa untuk bandar, saya juga semalam baru audit di BKL. Very sad because pelan induk banjir kita ada, tapi sekali lagi, adakah kontraktor, cara kita mengatur urus, mengikut spesifikasi dan juga mengguna pakai dana sebaik mungkin. So I can't say much until the report is concluded, but my point being, DBKL is extremely powerful since controls, ibu kota Kuala Lumpur. To always suggest you need to invest in internal reform. Kalau ada kepakaran dalaman, baru boleh buat perubahan yang tahan selama-lamanya. Once or twice, maybe you want to hire a consultant. But if you don't do it, you spend money for the consultancy but not implement. And lastly, because Think City maklum di Perkhidmatan Tampau, contohnya, agriculture adalah penting. Maka kita telah mewujudkan festival padi antarabangsa yang sehingga tahun lepas, tahun ini, seramai 30,000 orang pengunjung. But it requires investing based on evidence. So you must also commensurate with equal payment allowance untuk petani supaya mereka boleh hidup secara bermaruah. And kedua adalah we did a multidimensional poverty index study in Perkhidmatan Tampau. If you look at budget semalam, dia umum PJK makanan RM1,166. Dia tak berani pun sebut RM2,208 iaitu poverty line income yang sepatutnya telah direvise tahun 2018. You look at poverty, you look at the poor as just, checking a checklist, ticking a checklist. And I think this is the problem because nak tengok kalau kat Perak, Johor, Sabah, bagaimana mereka nak hidup secara berkualiti, you need to conduct a multidimensional analysis. Apa bentuk-bentuk deprivasi? Senang ke hospital kalau kat Sarawak? Kalau jatuh sakit, nak lahirkan anak, kalau ada komplikasi. This goes back to the level of livable or quality life that you can enjoy. Thank you. Sorry.
Orang kena tak bawah kata is covering our face apparently. Saya jawab live dulu dalam, but let me speak in Malay to the benefit of those watching outside kan. Dia sebenarnya masalah yang sama yang bukan saja berlaku di Malaysia. Apabila ada perubahan dari satu kerajaan yang dah lama memerintah kepada kerajaan baru. Kita tengok berlaku di Jepun, kita tengok berlaku di Mexico, kita tengok berlaku di negara-negara lain. Kita juga tengok berlaku di blok Eropah Timur selepas keruntuhan Soviet. Apabila sebuah masyarakat tu dia berada lama di bawah satu sistem yang sama, cengkaman yang sama, apabila mereka berubah dan bagi peluang kepada kumpulan yang baru, harapan or expectation is very high. Ini yang selalunya tidak berjaya ditangani dengan baik. Kita tahu yang berlaku 22 bulan semasa Pakatan Harapan, banyak yang menyebabkan orang kecewa, ada soalan ataupun pandangan yang macam saudara sebut tadi. Kalau nampaknya terlalu banyak perubahan tetapi hasilnya tetap sama, jadi buat apa berubah? That is a common societal and sociological issue around the world, bukan saja di masyarakat Malaysia. Sebab itu, tak banyak di dunia ini yang masyarakat itu boleh berubah daripada satu sistem yang mencengkam sebegitu lama, dia berubah kepada satu kerajaan yang berbentuk reformis dan kekal. You saw that in Japan, more or less you saw that in Mexico, you saw that in the ex-Soviet. Sebab itu akhirnya walaupun komunis jatuh, semua buat parti masing-masing, tapi sebenarnya itu semua bekas pimpinan komunis buat parti baru, nama tak komunis, tapi sistemnya masih lagi komunis dari segi kebebasan dan proses. Sebab itu, saya haraplah Pakatan Harapan, sebab tu saya agak kritikal kalau kadang-kadang kita nampak terlalu defensif mengenai rekod 22 bulan itu. Memang betul kalau nak dibandingkan pencapaian yang telah dapat 22 bulan itu, banyak benda yang kita tengok hari ini sebenarnya berhasil dan berputik daripada 22 bulan itu juga. Kalau tidak kerana 22 bulan itu, contohnya Badan Kehakiman tidak mendapat signal yang jelas bahawa tidak akan ada campur tangan. Then whatever you saw in the last 1 or 2 years, actually part of it came from whatever reforms that started in 22 months. Tapi ada beberapa perkara yang saya rasa boleh diperbaiki dengan jauh lebih baik, and we should have learned our lesson kalau kita menang sekali lagi. Contohnya, bagaimana memastikan bahawa ada perubahan dari segi pendekatan pentadbiran yang menyeluruh. Saya ingat dan saya harap macam saudara lain dan yang lain-lain cuba faham satu perkara. Daily, saya dapat lebih kurang beribu-ribu mesej setiap hari. Baik daripada WhatsApp, daripada Facebook, daripada Twitter, daripada email, segala-galanya. Ada proposal, ada segala komplain, ada everything under the sun. Jadi selalunya ahli politik, they will be overwhelmed by this. Jadi sebab itu kalau prosesnya itu pendekatan pentadbiran sama seperti ada orang yang you kenal, you Cintong ke, Tony Pua ke, Rafizi ke, it will not work. Sebab dia akan cakap ya, and then it's somewhere and it's not got attended to. Maksudnya the changes has to be systemic. And changing that system requires not just an overhaul of the whole bureaucracy of the government, tetapi juga the overall approach to how do we manage ideas and contribution. Ada perkara yang melibatkan peraturan dan juga proses perolehan yang itu perlu melalui reformasi yang kita kena buat dengan proses perolehan kerajaan. There are certain things that has to go there. Kalau tidak, kita tak ada beza dengan UMNO Barisan Nasional. Someone bring a proposal, that proposal will then be changed into RFP eventually. What about all the other proposal, kan? Okay. Now, that one should be handled and government has to do that, streamline it dengan pendekatan seberapa banyak pembina, seberapa banyak syarikat, seberapa banyak orang yang boleh membantu ataupun boleh menyumbang, memberi nilai terbaik kalau melalui proses kerajaan, you go through that. Now, yang saya ingat, kita perlukan pendekatan paling baru ialah apabila ada pertukaran kerajaan, rakyat akan tampil ke depan untuk bagi macam-macam idea. Terutamanya sekarang ini, especially if you're talking about tech, innovation, obviously it has to be out of the box. Out of the box ideas will not go through your normal process. Kadang-kadang ada orang tak nampak, obviously kalau ada proses itu melalui dia ada value screening dia, kebanyakan idea yang inovatif ini untuk awalnya does not make economic sense. You will not get a sustainable producing venture that can step up anything in the first 4 or 5 years. It doesn't work like that. Sebab itu kalau tengok di negara lain, apabila mereka bercakap tentang tech, tentang idea, usually the hit rate is not even 10%. Maksudnya, kalau capital yang dilaburkan untuk membangunkan sesuatu idea itu, satu idea yang boleh mengubah masyarakat, kalau 100 juta yang dilaburkan, 90 juta hangus. 10 juta aja sebenarnya yang akhirnya boleh berkembang. So it doesn't fit into our normal value-based economical assessment that is imprinted in the normal government process. Itu yang saya ingat tidak ada dalam masyarakat Malaysia sekarang. Maksudnya kalau salah seorang anak muda, any one of you, you think you wake up one day, ada good idea, you tak tahu sebenarnya nak pergi mana. Because pergi kat kerajaan pun dia ada proses dia, pergi jumpa menteri, susah nak jumpa, kalau bagi pun tak tentu. Jadi sebab itu, kalau kita tengok model di negara-negara lain kan, mereka mengalu-alukan penyertaan rakyat dari segi inisiatif sendiri, dari segi idea. Selain daripada proses demokrasi itu, yang penting juga, sebab itu peruntukan dalam bentuk geran-geran kecil yang memberi tumpuan kepada idea-idea inovatif daripada proof of concept, daripada idea nak bawa kepada proof of concept. 100 ideas, most probably only 10 will go to the proof of concept. Daripada proof of concept, ada idea yang boleh commercialize, ada idea yang boleh digunakan untuk kerajaan, untuk masyarakat dan sebagainya. Out of that 10 yang dah lepas proof of concept, mungkin ada 2-3 yang layak untuk mendapat pembiayaan grant rakyat seterusnya to bring it to implementation. That we don't have. Sebagai satu negara dan masyarakat, kita tak ada. Salah satu pembaziran paling besar dalam Malaysia ialah geran-geran R&D. Geran R&D. Dulu masa saya kat parlimen dulu, saya bergaduh pasal geran R&D lah. Sebab tu kat Malaysia, kita ada satu kumpulan usahawan yang dipanggil grantopreneur. Kerja dia dapatkan grant 5 juta, gitu-gitu. Lepas tu 3-4 tahun hilang, dia ambil grant satu lagi, dia ambil grant satu lagi. Tak ada satu pun idea dia tu yang akhirnya berjaya jadi komersial, menyediakan peluang pekerjaan dan sebagainya. Nah, sebabnya ialah kerana proses itu opaque. Dan dia kena tahu kabel mana orang tu dan sebagainya kan. So I think like what we really need to focus as well is to give recognition that there are different pathways for people with ideas, genuine capability to start from first level grant to second level grant to third level grant. But of course, you must be able to deliver it lah kan. Of course, I'm lucky because I can raise seed funding. So, not a problem. I can raise seed funding, seed investors overseas, Malaysia. So, we are okay. But I went through the process myself, even like me, yang dah ada 20 tahun pengalaman running billions worth operation as a CFO, saya pun tak pernah layak dapat grant. So I can imagine at your level, you pergi minta grant untuk buka startup ke untuk idea, takkan ada orang layan. Jadi maksudnya, that bit has to be relooked in detail. Dan kalau satu benda yang saya rasa kita ubah masyarakat kita, untuk kita, terutamanya untuk yang muda-muda, because yang banyak idea gila ni budak-budak muda. Well, not all your ideas are right lah. Some of it memang gila lah. As you grow older, you realise sebenarnya idea tu gila, it doesn't work, kan? But it's good daripada awal untuk ada idea, because it's better to have a group of young population who care, who wants to find a solution, who have ideas. You will go through that process to mature up to know which one will work and which one will not work. Izzah and I went through that. Obviously, masa kita orang muda, umur 20 tahun lebih, like you guys, kepala otak kita orang lain. But after 20 years of working, of seeing things, we kind of know, this sebenarnya yang ini mungkin, I wouldn't have done it like that. Sebab dia cantik atas kertas, tapi ada masalah-masalah lain, kan. Problemnya, as a society, we don't, kan. Dan yang ini juga, dia ada kesan juga kepada pendekatan dan juga pemikiran yang muda-muda ni mengenai penglibatan dalam pentadbiran, politik dan sebagainya. Bila tidak ada jalan seperti ini yang membolehkan orang muda mengambil tanggungjawab pada peringkat-peringkat yang bersesuaian. If your level is at the proof of concept, you focus at the proof of concept. Sebab itu juga dia timbul. The mic is working okay. Is it battery? Hello. Sebab itu juga kadang-kadang, and you will hate me for saying this, kadang-kadang yang muda pun become so unrealistic that you think that it is easy to reverse the flow of things. Sebabnya, tapi saya tak salahkan, sebabnya ialah kerana contohnya you tak pernah diberi peluang untuk menguruskan satu organisasi di peringkat umur yang muda. You tak pernah contohnya ada peluang untuk berhadapan dengan beberapa isu yang melibatkan perkara-perkara rumit. Jadi, you will see it from outside and you think it can be changed just because we will think differently. Itu yang sebenarnya berlaku bila peralihan daripada BN kepada Pakatan. I'm still Pakatan, don't worry. Kepada PH, kan. Sebabnya, ialah kerana there are many things, dan kalau kita tukar sistem kita, kalau kita tukar proses kita, dan kalau kita ubah pendekatan kita supaya kita maklumkan bahawa bukan saja kita alu-alukan penyertaan idea, but there is a funnel to grow that idea. That's called crowdsourcing. And crowdsourcing, everyone can talk, everyone can have an idea, you will be heard through a process, but then of course, it's a pyramid of selection, because eventually from hundreds of ideas, there may be only 10% that will pass through proof of concept. From proof of concept, maybe only out of 10, maybe only 3 that actually is robust enough in terms of implementation, in terms of the concept, in terms of the economics, in terms of the capability for it to go to the next one. But if you make it as part and parcel of society, most probably the 2 or 3 that eventually see the light of the day, yang itu akan banyak ada kesan kepada masyarakat. It's almost like salmon swimming upstream for to spawn. Memanglah daripada ratus-ratus ribu tu akhirnya satu saja yang lepas. But it's that one yang akhirnya akan bertelur, dan the process will continue and they will continue, and then anak-anak tu akan keluar balik, and that process will continue over and over again. Kita tak ada funnel tu langsung. Bila kita tak ada funnel begitu, sebab itu sama ada rakyat ataupun orang biasa merasakan mereka tak ada stake in society, sebab kecuali dia jadi ahli politik. I mean, for the life of me, if I have a chance, I don't want to be doing this. I know enough that there are many ways to affect and to have an impact apart from politics. Tapi masalahnya masyarakat kita masih lagi belum sampai ke situ. Sebab itu kita kena tukar cara. Some of it is mindset, some of it is processes, some of it is the sheer drive to get people to understand that stay on course, awal-awal tak menjadi 5, 6, 7 years, it will work. Jadi, I think that's something that and learn daripada the last 4-5 years. Dan itu juga, okay, ini juga yang selalunya ahli politik lain benci dekat saya. That's why I'm a lot more popular with the public than fellow politicians. Masalahnya ialah apabila ahli-ahli politik dia terus ada pengalaman politik saja, tapi dia tak melalui proses ini. Jadi kemahiran mentadbir dan memahami dan juga the ability to troubleshoot, to find the root cause, to assess what are the solutions to the root causes. And not only that, to be able to see it through all the way to implementation, itu masalah yang ada dengan ahli politik di semua parti. BN memang kita tahu lah, presidennya Zahid Hamidi. I don't have to say much about that lah, you can tell lah kan. Tapi dia juga masalah yang sama, baik PAS, baik PKR, DAP, amanah dan sebagainya. Kalau kita tidak ada ahli politik yang tahu bahawa memastikan sesuatu masalah atau perubahan itu berlaku melibatkan proses daripada idea, making it work, staying true for it, managing conflict as you stay on course, maka mudah untuk ahli politik. Dia cakap lain, bila dia jadi kerajaan, he's not accountable for it, and it's very easy to just blame everything else, civil servant ke apa dan sebagainya. So I hope it's a work in process, and that's why it's very important untuk yang muda-muda supaya faham that it's not a walk in the park. Sebab itu I'm not keen on it. It's a lot easier to build a company worth 100 million and have a good retirement than trying to change a monster that we inherit from the last 100 years. And then dia banyak stakeholders dan sebagainya, dan stakeholders apabila melibatkan kerajaan dengan masyarakat ni lagi banyak, ada rakyat, ada civil servants, ada ekonomi and so on, kan. But I think that's what we do better. Sebab paling kurang dalam PKR, at least the leadership by now is mostly people of our age, of your age basically. Jadi kita lebih faham the difficulty, tiadanya ruang. So harapan kita ialah whatever we are trying to do in the party radically, should we have a chance, hopefully we'll carry it through in government as well. But being extremely realistic that it will take some time. Cuma, as with any implementation, kita kena tahulah mana low hanging fruits dulu, kita fokus yang itu dulu. Mana ada yang ambil masa sedikit, you take time to put it in place. You have to prioritize supaya the buy-in daripada stakeholders. So you get very earlier on. People actually know that this is happening. It will take slightly longer. But it is happening. The first phase is happening, the second phase is happening, and so on. So, to sum up, when, my response to Blai's sentiment just now, I understand it's quite difficult kadang-kadang when we ask this question, why should we bother? Lebih baik, for example, stay with the devil you know. It's normal. Kan? There's only one problem with that line. I think we are at the tail end of a system that can no longer sustain itself. Dia sama macam, I don't know why I keep referring to communists and Soviet today, but it keeps coming back. Dia sama macam contohnya when Gorbachev came to power in 1985. He has all the right thinking. Dia tahu bahawa dia kena ada reformasi. They were talking about perestroika, they were talking about glasnost, keterbukaan, economy must move daripada a centrally planned economy to more open economy. If he had done that 20 years before the 1980s, Soviet would have been very different picture now. Masalahnya ialah he wanted to do that at the tail end of the system that was already collapsing and self-imploding. Within 3 to 4 years, he was the one who was buried. And he was buried with the whole system. Soviet collapsed and imploded by itself sebab a 70 years worth of corruption, mismanagement, killing off innovation, dia akan ada kesan yang besar kepada masyarakat walaupun you actually get the right prescription at the end of it. Now my fear, to answer, the sentiment that why should we bother, is going to be the same thing. It will collapse. Whatever we have now is not sustainable. Kalau tengok kepada belanjawan bajet semalam pun, it's not sustainable. Walaupun disebut sebagai bajet yang paling besar dalam sejarah, kita sebenarnya akan, kalau kita ikut bajet itulah, kita akan belanja lebih sikit daripada kita belanja tahun 2022. We have already spent, we passed, well not me lah, I mean they passed the budget at 332 billion last year. Tapi sekarang dah belanja 380 billion. Maksudnya, kalau dia kata yang paling besar, tapi dia hanya ada 370 billion, itu pun dia kena pinjam 100 billion. And out of that, yang lain tu semua bayaran tetap. Gaji, hutang, semua. Sebenarnya dia potong subsidi, dia potong ni semua. Tapi biasa, ahli politik dia kena cerita pengumuman kan. We are at the tail end of a system that no longer can sustain at the trajectory that we had before. So we had no choice. Unless we reform, unless we do something, the degradation in terms of everything, quality of life, in terms of salary, in terms of education, will be a lot more severe from one year to another as we go forward. It's no longer be gradual. Because that's just how society is. If you condone and allow inefficiencies, corruption, the wrong people who don't have the pension for doing things right, don't have the talent for it to lead, then basically it will be the collapse of any society. So, soalan kedua tadi Syah tanya pasal kenapa kita tak ada livable city kan? Masalahnya sebenarnya berpunca daripada soal ekonomi. Basic ekonomi begini. Di mana ada kegiatan ekonomi yang baik, di situlah akan ada demand. Dia bermula dengan demand bahan asas, kemudian demand kepada perumahan dan sebagainya. How livable is a city in your case? Because I think what you are trying to question as well is kenapa kita tak boleh decentralize contohnya? Kenapa tak macam dekat US? For example, the US HQ of the largest of the corporations in the world bukan dekat New York. HQ Coke dekat Atlanta. Kalau kat UK, HQ Asda, which is now a lot bigger, one of the largest supermarket. HQ Asda di Leeds, tempat aku belajar dulu. It's like sometimes ada je HQ dekat ujung dunia mana entah. Kan? GE punya HQ, I think it's somewhere in Connecticut. Yeah. Okay. Sebab itu, dia boleh ada, dia boleh menyediakan peluang pekerjaan yang gajinya hampir sama di seluruh pelusuk negara dia. We can't do that. Sebab isu dia ialah, kegiatan ekonomi utama, terutamanya yang bersabit dengan perkhidmatan. This is not manufacturing or commodity based. Yang itu semua di Lembah Kelang. Kalau ada sedikit pun di Georgetown, ada sedikit pun di Johor Bahru, but it's very little. Most of it is di Lembah Kelang. Jadi apabila kita tidak mampu memastikan bahawa tempat-tempat lain itu juga berjaya ada kegiatan ekonomi yang boleh menampung jenis-jenis pekerjaan yang boleh menawarkan gaji, dan there is no demand for cities pun. Jadi akhirnya setakat ini di Malaysia, kebanyakan pembangunan di luar Lembah Kelang is almost exclusively public driven. Maksudnya, sebab itu ahli parlimen, menteri, dia bergaduh. Dia jadi menteri, tiba-tiba menteri itu katakanlah, menteri itu daripada Gua Musang. Kita tahu Gua Musang tu jauh gila. Dia akan berkeras. Dia nak buka universiti baru dekat Gua Musang. And it has happened before. Saya ingat arwah Jamaluddin Jajis dulu kan. Rompen kan. Your turn. Masa, dia punya time. Masa tu Uni10 buka universiti, dah elok-elok dah dekat Bangi. Tapi dia berkeras juga. Dia nak bawa faculty daripada Uni10 tu, accounting, pergi hantar dekat Rompen. Betul ada accounting kat Rompen. I mean, logically, you want to have a campus. Because there's economies of scale, everything, facility kan. Tak pasal-pasal kena campak pergi ke Rompen. Sebab itu you ada UiTM bersepak. Di setiap negara, semua negeri ada UiTM. Sebab di luar Lembah Kelang, selalunya sebarang kegiatan ekonomi dan demand di tempat itu is public driven. Maksudnya kerajaan kena buka, kerajaan kena bayar dan sebagainya. It's not sustainable. Sebab itu saya selalu sebut, kita ada masalah dari segi struktur ekonomi. Semalam pun masa perbincangan bajet, Izzah ada sebut tadi, it's like, kita ada berjuta-juta syarikat, lebih kan 1,200 syarikat kan. 1,200 juta, 1.2 million syarikat kan. Daripada ini, 98% adalah mikro dan juga SME. Maksudnya mikro semua ni kan. Dari sumbangan mereka kepada GDP, yang 98% company ni, lebih kurang 40% ya. Yang syarikat yang 2% tu sumbangkan 60%. Syarikat yang 2% tu semua dekat Lembah Kelang. Sebab tu orang Kelantan pun semua datang sini. Pekerjaan untuk orang Terengganu. Angkut bas hantar kat Selangor. So it's that. Jadi isunya is a structural issue, which is how do we step up kita punya SME yang kat Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah semua ni, supaya dia boleh upgrade daripada dia untuk pasaran tempatan kecil-kecilan ni, daripada di daerah dia boleh upgrade, dia dah jadi cukup baik dari segi barangan, dari segi harga, dari segi efisiensi, untuk dia mula kompetitif di kawasan regional. Kalau bukan di Pematang Pauh, dia dah mula di Penang. Sebab bila dia dah jadi lebih besar, maka dia bolehlah ada duit lebih sikit, tawarkan gaji yang lebih sikit. Dan untuk dia jadi besar, dia kena expand, kena pakai teknologi dan lain-lain. You see, no government is doing that. We have left it for the last 20, 30 years. Jadi akhirnya, sebab itu bila pandemik datang, run up. Sebab yang boleh survive ni hanya syarikat yang besar-besar. Yang kecil ni, yang selama ini dia okey, dapat gaji 1,500, 2,000, that's it, they're gone. Sebab itu juga kalau orang tanya, kenapa gaji tak boleh naik? Sebab 90% daripada syarikat-syarikat kita ni yang SME sangat-sangat ni, kalau dia naikkan gaji, kalau kita buat undang-undang terus, suruh dia naikkan gaji, dia bankrupt. Yang 2% tu boleh lah. Sebab itu orang Petronas happy lah, mari macam mana pun dia tak ada kesan. Orang GLC semua dia tak ada kesan sangat. Yang bekerja, yang biasa ni, jadi bila graduan kita keluar banyak-banyak, takkan semua nak kerja GLC, kerja kerajaan. By right, dia kena kerja dengan SME semua. Sebab itu saya selalu sebut, kita kena belajar daripada Germany. Sebab Germany terbalik. Majority, more than 80% of syarikat dia, ekonomi dia adalah SME. Dan bukan saja SME, is family owned. Daripada zaman 200 tahun lagi, kalau dia buat jam tu, dia buat jam yang by now, jam dia tu satu dunia dah beli. Jadi sebab itu, SME ni dia berterabur. Ada dekat Bavaria lah, ada dekat Leipzig lah, ada semua. Jadi they create the demand of that economy. In fact, Shah, if you ask me, we have to address that first sebelum kita bercakap pasal livable city. Because otherwise, you can't artificially create demand in a place where there is no demand. Itu pun masalah dia. Dan itulah yang berlaku di KL, Lembah Kelang. Sebab tu KL ni letih, dia jadi sprawling. As a city, KL is so sprawling. Kerja dekat KL, duduk semenyih. Kan, kerja dekat KL, duduk kat kapal. Sebab dia dah tak cukup tanah, sebab ada dekat situ saja tau kan. Nothing against semenyih, it's just that kalau kita punya ekonomi tak macam yang ada sekarang ni, sebenarnya tidak ada keperluan untuk KL jadi begitu sprawling macam sekarang. Sebab itu bila KL jadi sprawling macam sekarang, nanti I will come to that issue. Habislah hutan ke bukit ke semua orang nak lah. Sebab that's how you make money. Property developer wants to make money. But it would have been different otherwise. Kalau perancangan ekonomi itu berjaya dengan baik, then every big cities, they are sustainable on their own. Adalah dulu rancangan masa zaman Pak Allah dulu, sebab tu Pak Allah umumkan ada North Corridor. Tapi masalah Malaysia selalu macam tu lah. Idea daripada diagnosis yang betul, bila sampai dia fikir, lepas ini kerajaan akan peruntukkan ratus-ratus juta dekat utara. Bab mana aku boleh sakau? So instead of really focusing, dia jadi property development project. Jadi kat Medini property development project semua. So after one generation, 20 years, we still are not there. Kan? Jadi I think that issue sebenarnya, livable city semua ni, will resolve by itself if we fix the very crucial and critical time bomb of our economy. And that to me is a much bigger thing. Because by then, after that, developer ni dia akan fall in the line sendiri. Bila dah ada demand tu, dia tahulah orang suka macam ni. Jadi rumah dekat Kuala Terengganu macam tu, rumah kat Kuantan macam tu, rumah kat Ipoh macam tu, which we don't have yet. And businesses, I mean, I run business, it's all about bottom line to us because we need to survive. Kalau, for example, I can run my company more efficiently and cheaper by relocating in Ipoh, I will. But unfortunately, that's not the case now. Sebab kalau relocate kat Ipoh, budak-budak semua kena relocate kat Ipoh, dia jadi chicken and egg. But contohnya kalau Ipoh tu dah memang pun known dan memang dah ada banyak, kemudian workforce dia dah memang boleh cater untuk some of the things that we want to do, then there's no problem to do it in Ipoh. Kan? So that has to come first. I think even before we can, we have to talk about it, we have to plan for it, tapi is a bottleneck at the structural economy. The most that the government can do now, or if PH takes over, the most we can do while we fix the structure is to actually send some of the government agencies outside KL. Yeah. There's no need for everything to be in KL or Putrajaya. That's my view. Ada Bukit Damansara semua. Ada jabatan-jabatan, ada birokrasi yang boleh saja dihantar ibu pejabat jabatan JCOM, kalau ada JCOM kan. Ibu pejabat multimedia semua kita hantar ke Ketereh, Kelantan. Menteri dia from Ketereh duduk kat situ. Jokes aside, but you can because government bureaucracy then at least you bring. I think that's so-called low-hanging fruits yang kerajaan boleh buat. To decentralize administration and to send and to relieve the stress on Klang Valley. You can't do that by instructing businesses, but you can do that when it comes to bureaucracy and public administration. Sharon tanya 2 question tadi pasal PKR dan juga pasal environment. Kan? Let me answer pasal environment dulu. I agree. I think PH generally, baik di Penang, baik di Selangor, we don't hear much yet dekat Negeri Sembilan lah. Mungkin baru satu penggal kan. But baik di Penang dan baik Selangor, we have a lot to answer for. And I'm not apologetic for it. Of course, we've been hammering internally and we will continue to hammer, especially ada latest revelations mengenai syarikat-syarikat yang dapat lesen dan sebagainya. We have to hammer, true. But I think when it comes to approach, I hope that we are slightly ahead than all the other parties. And I think we have restructured our leadership portfolios. I think PKR is the only party now that has a climate change portfolio. Elizabeth Wong is in charge of climate change. Hopefully our party leaders talk a lot more. I mean, Izzah was among the first one to talk about climate change. It takes a while to mainstream it. Because I hope you also understand. Soal climate change semua ni, buat masa sekarang, dia bukan lagi top 5 priority pengundi biasa. You know, if you are a mainstream party, you have to balance dengan menangani top 5, top 3 masalah-masalah, perkara-perkara yang pengundi rakyat biasa nak, pada masa yang sama juga memastikan ada isu-isu yang bukan lagi mainstream buat masa sekarang, tetapi penting untuk masa depan, termasuklah climate change. And I think that process is happening and it's a tough call kerana masalah ekonomi yang saya sebut tadi bila menjawab soalan yang Syah bagi tadi is actually also applicable to the states that we manage. Kerana untuk kerajaan negeri, hasil dan sebagainya masih lagi almost exclusively driven by property development. And obviously, you know, kerajaan negeri-negeri akan jadi chicken and egg. Dia rasa kalau kami terlalu berkeras mengenai kelulusan pembangunan dan sebagainya, nanti nampak tak ada progress. Bila tak ada progress, tak ada peluang kerjaan. It's a chicken and egg thing. I don't think it's entirely true. I feel that that's why we have to go out of the box and send the signal that sementara kita akan terus sokong pembangunan-pembangunan, tapi we must pay a lot higher priority to soal ESG, soal sustainability, soal alam sekitar dan sebagainya. But I think there are also certain things, complications yang require tough call. Sebahagian, contohnya di Selangor kan, sebahagian daripada kelulusan adalah kelulusan yang telah diberikan dulu-dulu. Okay. I know that untuk rakyat biasa, and this was my attitude bila Pakatan menang 2008 dahulu. You reverse everything. Problem is you be challenged in court. And I can tell you, I don't know in details, tapi masa saya CEO di pejabat Selangor Economic Planning Office dulu kan, I was there for about 3 years. I can tell you almost all kalah. And pampas because the law is law. Kerajaan dah bagi kelulusan, tak kira lah kerajaan mana, kerajaan dah bagi kelulusan, bila ada kerajaan baru reverse, you know, kalau undang-undang membenarkan begitu dengan sewenang-wenangnya, mampulah. Company dah invest semua gini-gini, tukar kerajaan, reverse. Habis dah duit. Jadi, almost exclusively setakat ini pengetahuan saya, kes-kes begini bila pergi ke mahkamah kalah. Dan kerajaan negeri kena bayar pampasan kadang-kadang puluh atau ratus juta. So if you are in our shoes, not that I'm sporty for it, but I empathize with the fact that sometimes you kena fikir, okay, macam mana nak buat ni? Sebab ni kaya Toyo dah luluskan ni. Kalau aku reverse, kalau kena bayar pampasan sekian, kena bayar 300 juta from the public money. What if that 300 million is used for something else? You know, that moral debate will always happen. Okay, so kita kena tengok ada kes-kes yang melibatkan kelulusan dulu-dulu. You know, my view has always been dulu ialah you tighten it as much as possible. You try to protect it as much as possible. But I think as a rule of thumb, you know, it's very difficult to justify paying 400, 300 million to a property developer. Very difficult to justify. And jadi, how much can you tighten and you can protect from this legacy approvals? Itu adalah cabaran yang perlu ada kepada kerajaan-kerajaan negeri yang Pakatan Harapan ambil. And it's actually not just applicable to kerajaan negeri tau. If Pakatan Harapan menang federal, we will have a lot of these contractual, legally binding legacy issues. Kan? So that's one. Tapi for future ones, it's quite straightforward. As best as possible. I know some friends in DAP tak suka. Because, you know, Izzah and I are very clear that we have to move away from economically driven activities that are purely property development. You know, kalau tidak, sebab dari segi multiplying effect pun property development pun kena careful juga sebab kadang-kadang dia import steel, pekerjanya pun pekerja asing, and then engineer kita pun bukannya dibayar tinggi. If we are talking about restructuring economy, and you know, we have to find ways, although our power at the state level is very limited, tapi paling kurang, we need to try rather than carry on buat benda yang sama. Kan? To your question about leadership, kan? I think of all the parties, the process to get the best leadership is a work in progress. Any party evolves with it, you know. I can take a position and say that semua parti ada masalah ini, which is true. Semua parti ada lompat, semua parti ada khianat, semua parti ada non-performance, semua parti ada monkeys. It's true. But that's not the position that we want to take. We understand enough that if we are serious about fixing things, we can only do that with the best people on board. Masalahnya dalam politik begini, and again, you takkan suka when I say this, because I used to be in your shoes, and that's how I got stuck where I am now. I was a professional, like most of you, earning a lot more than most of you at your age. So it's very easy from, you know, my flight from when I was overseas, just not happy with certain things and say, oh, kenapa tak buat begini, kenapa tak buat begitu, kan? It just so happened that saya memang dalam parti daripada awal, and then, you know, I never consider myself a politics. After I accomplish certain things, I say, I've done my duty, I want to move on. Jadi, lepas Pakatan menang 2008, kan? You know, every now and then Datuk Seri Anwar will catch up and ask, and I say exactly like what you guys are telling me today. Until one day he said, you know what, you sound so smart, you think you're so smart, you know, for once, stand up and be counted, do something about it. That's how I end up, got stuck where I am. Because my ego was bruised. I was like, okay, you cabar aku okay, I will do it. You know what I realized? I think 80% of professionals are not fit to be politicians. Sebab bila kita professional dalam office kita, everything is provided. Memang dari segi technicality, kepakaran itu memang nampak rumit dan sebagainya. Tapi ada skill yang nak jadi ahli politik ini, even I struggle. Kesabaran contohnya. The patience to listen to 100 people every day. Izzah boleh buat, aku tak boleh buat. It's a pain. Sebab itu kalau orang tanya saya, why don't you want to do it? I don't want to do it. It's painful. Kerana you kena dengar, you buat pun salah, you tak buat pun salah, you buat macam mana pun, still ada orang kata salah. It's actually a lose-lose job as far as I'm concerned, unless you are corrupt. If you are corrupt, it pays. Because okay lah, you put up dengan semua ni, tapi you dapat 500 juta dan satu penggal okay lah kan. So, that's what I realise as we go along. Actually, daripada pool of people ni, dia macam Venn diagram. You do Maxon, you do Venn diagram kan. Kita perlukan beberapa kepakaran untuk jadi ahli politik dan pentadbir yang baik. Satu, kita perlukan otak. Masalahnya orang cerdik ni selalunya tak ada kesabaran. Dia pergi mesyuarat, dia dengar semua. Pengalaman saya dengan Izzah dalam PKR, kita cuba bawa masuk seberapa banyak, kita suruh dia bekerja, build the party from the ground up, sacrifice. Tak tahan lama, 1 tahun dia cabut dah. Sebab what's in it for me? Paling kurang buat kerja ni, dapat gaji, dapat bonus. Ini kena maki tiap-tiap hari. Dah lah tak boleh menang. There's nothing in it out. Well, nowadays lah. Dulu-dulu kan. At least, kalau in corporate, you will get something. If you run your company, you will get something. Kan? So, itu pun dah susah nak cari orang yang professional dan intellect, yang cerdik, tapi has the patience for public service. The worst is this. Even if kalau you jumpa orang yang intellect, dia ada passion for public service, tapi belum tentu dia ada skill for delivery. Sebab, idea itu kemudian kena disusun, kena planning and so on. And then you have to implement it, working it. It's not easy given the lack of resources. After 20 years, I realize how difficult it is. Sebab itu I tolerate certain things. Sebab itu selalunya I cakap, okay, you know what, give me 5-year break. I'm not going to do this. Yeah. So to your question, how are we going to do it? Obviously dalam PKR kita ada proses lah, ada pemilihan dan sebagainya. What we do in PKR most importantly is this. I think we emphasize on values. And sebab itu, by now I think the party are mostly, macam Izzah kata, the reformist generation. People who were in their early 20s, either baru graduate macam saya. Dah. Still belajar masa itu. Who joined the party in 98-99, but stayed true on the course of the party for the last 20 years, no matter what happened. These are the people yang faham, understand enough, this is a long haul, ini bukan career, this is a national service and so on. And we've gone through enough proses tapisan setiap 3 tahun, setiap 5 tahun that I think by and large now we've cleansed quite a lot. So I'm quite confident. Now that we have the core like that, sebab tu we have to be radical dengan cara kita assess leadership. Semua orang tahu saya cukup pantang kalau orang bodek. I really don't like that. It's a total waste of time. Kan? And bodek itulah yang memulakan bercambahnya rasuah. And so, sebab itu in PKR now, walaupun unpopular, and dia ada bising-bising, as much as possible, we want to make it data-driven. Kalau kau kata kau ramai orang tengah rajin berkempen, show us on our phone. Because everything that you do will be clocked. So kalau you cakap saja, sembang saja, it doesn't count. You kata you ada 200 orang tengah berjumpa pengundi. I want to see your data clock on the phone. Every hour being done by a single PKR campaigner now is being clocked. So then I know actually bila orang tu kata saya hebat gini-gini, I see actually is supported by data. So we want to make sure that it's quantifiable as possible. We also want to make sure that it's open up and kita level the playing field to as many people as possible. Sebab itu calon pun kita bukakan semua. Memanglah orang marah. Saya ingat yang last meeting kita bentangkan kepada Majlis Pimpinan Pusat, semua muka-muka pimpinan jadi hijau lah. It's like, what's the point aku dalam parti ni? Tiba-tiba you open to everyone. Of course, there will be selection criteria. Maksudnya kita tengok juga rekod dia, semua gini. But what we want to deliver is this. We want to widen our net for talent pool in the future. Sudah tentu kita juga tahu 100 orang yang nak jadi calon tu, bila kita tanya dia 4-5 perkara, dia tak sanggup. Sanggup ke tidak keluarkan duit sendiri? Tak. Sanggup ke tidak untuk ambil cuti 3 bulan? Tak. Then of course they self-eliminate lah. But out of 100 people, kalau kita ada 5-6 orang yang betul-betul at the right time, with the right passion, with the right capability, is a gem. And there is a place for them. Daripada parti-parti lain, kecuali kau ada kabel, kecuali kau ada ni, sumpah takkan dapat peluang pun. So I think the process is in place and the process will continue. I think we are strong enough to weather internal resistance. And that's one advantage that PKR has yang tak ada parti-parti lain ada. We have managed the internal resistance. Sekarang hanya untuk kita laksanakan proses itu for us to bring in the next generation to widen the pool. We will not get it 100%, right? But I'm sure we won't have Azmin Ali this time around, inshallah. Right? So any question? I return back to the floor.
Assalamualaikum. Saya Muhammad daripada Bentong. Saya mewakili Astro Malaysia dalam misi membina masyarakat yang bahagia. Saya ada 3 soalan. Pertama yang mengenai pemilihan calon keadilan. Apa boleh nanti sekiranya calon itu telah dipilih, adakah penerangan dari segi sebab apa dia dipilih diberitahu kepada publik dan bersedia sebab apa dia dipilih, merit apakah yang dia dipilih, dan adakah calon itu bersedia untuk mengisytiharkan harta. Okey, itu soalan pertama. Soalan kedua, kesilapan terbesar Pakatan Harapan selepas Sheraton Move adalah tidak membuat kabinet bayangan. Jadi sampai sekarang kita tak tahu alternatif kepada menteri-menteri yang tak function tu. Okey, dia ada 2. Sekiranya Pakatan Harapan menjadi pembangkang, adakah kabinet bayangan rasmi ni akan diberitahu kepada umum? Dan sekiranya jadi kerajaan, adakah Pakatan Harapan bersedia untuk membawa cukai yang progresif seperti CGT? Okey. Dan adakah cukai itu akan dimasukkan dalam manifesto? Okay. Untuk soalan yang terakhir, untuk minta saudara Rafizi dan saudari Nurul Izzah untuk memberi sedikit komen tentang pertahanan negara dan macam mana untuk memantapkan semula Kementerian Pertahanan. Dan sikit soalan yang daripada situ, apakah rahsia orang kanan pembangkang boleh masuk ke media perdana seperti TV3? Sebab itu merupakan salah satu sejarah yang paling besar buat Malaysia baru. Baik, terima kasih.
Test. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks, Raf and Izzah, for your time today. My name is Benjamin. Just a quick question here is that in the aspects of finance and economy, if you go to many of these meetings with overseas investors, Malaysia happens to always be in the downgrade category. May it be in BlackRock, Fidelity, big names like such, you're constantly in that segment. And it also works for the investment banking side as well. We're always on the underweight category. That means you look at Jakarta or Indonesia or in Thailand, you get at least neutral or overweight category. I think there's a mix of issue here. So I know somehow or another we are not linked to the stock market, but we are through our EPF or ASB to a certain extent. You take a loan, you also expect dividends to come to cover back that rate of funding. So that is actually quite important. So I'm coming to this point whereby during the last 7 years to 8 years, we experienced no growth at all in the stock market. That's one. There is certain sector like the tech sector in Penang is doing very well, but as for the rest, it's a one-way decline. And the most obvious feedback that you get most of the time that if the opposition wins this time around, sell everything. Sell everything. This is the common misconception you get from Singapore fund managers, or even sell all your portfolio, sell all Malaysian stocks. During the 2008 fiasco, and it maybe, it was the wrong finance minister or what, I'm not too sure. So maybe the question that I want to pose to you all is a two-legged strategy. One is that how do you elevate these fears to the average bloke? Don't even talk about the sophisticated fund managers, the average guy now. Even you ask a chap now that, in Malaysia, that if Pakatan win, they actually sell. BN is buy, Pakatan is sell. So that's the one. How do you elevate that, the fear?
When you say that if Pakatan wins, it sells, when BN wins, it buys, do you mean that's the attitude that is taken by the market? Or do you mean that they think that Pakatan will move away from holding, through JLIs and so on, from holding Malaysian shares?
No, I think the thought behind it is that when you choose Pakatan Harapan, the earnings of all these companies are going to go down and decline. So dump your stocks first. That's a one-way road that everyone thinks that.
So basically, the expected market reaction is if Pakatan wins, then you see a dip in Bursa.
Very much so. And I think it's going to be like a strong dip downwards. So, okay, that's one thing. And then the second thing is that, I think everyone here also is touching the same topic. How do we get out of this 7-year conundrum decline? And I know you have a lot of ideas on tech. And I know I see Indonesia changing their listing state. But it's kind of like a lost decade that's happening. But I mean, it's pretty much thankful that even both of you are here to talk to us. I think this kind of level politics to a junior guy like us sitting down here would never have happened without you all. So I appreciate that. But just share your thoughts. That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, my name Faris. Okay, soalan saya tak ada soalan lah. Saya nak cakap, nak lebih kepada, nak kongsi lebih kepada macam kata apa? Macam perspektif saya lah. So saya rasa macam negara kita. Soalan pertama saya kepada Nurul Izzah dan Rafizi, adakah you rasa wealth inequality itu satu masalah bagi negara kita? Wealth inequality, kesenjangan kekayaan. I quote your father. Kalau you rasa satu masalah, kita dalam sejarah negara kita ada masalah kemiskinan yang banyak, dan kita dalam zaman Tun Razak kita buat DEB, dasar ekonomi baru, dan dasar ekonomi baru kita punya aim is growth and growth. Sebab kita rasa when the growth and a lot of those yang dalam hardcore poverty boleh escape poverty and then become a middle class, and then it up to the 90s, which is a very good thing. I think for us, walaupun how bad is DEB, dia punya consequence tu, dia ada, which is we have a growing middle class, a very huge middle class after 1990s. Tapi kita punya masalah sekarang is, kalau kita rasa wealth inequality satu masalah, which is, dan kita punya strategi still kepada growth, and then before we even, kita belum perasan lagi tentang kesenjangan atau wealth inequality itu, kita tak buat pun bagaimana kita nak make sure orang yang miskin di bawah, yang ada masalah pendapatan yang rendah, kekayaan yang rendah. Apa cara kita? Kalau kita nak turunkan growth kita mestilah memastikan kalau you naik 100 billion, 80 billion tu mesti pergi ke yang paling rendah tu. Tetapi kalau mengikut strategi dan sistem ekonomi kita sekarang, the growth akan pergi kepada yang di elites tu. Kan? Jadi saya punya itu cara dia kalau kita nak go kepada growth. Tapi kalau kedua, kalau kita nak lebih kepada redistribution. And then when you come to distribution, kita akan cakap tentang percukaian. Tapi percukaian, cukai. Dan cukai dalam Malaysia satu perkara yang sangat sensitif. Dan orang kita merasakan cukai itu benda tak baik lah. Walaupun kita tahu kalau sebagai seorang yang belajar yang ada accountant, saya tahu baru cukai itu kita ambil untuk kita run our public services, bina rumah, buat make sure KKM to run and everything. Tapi kalau politician kita hanya kata, oh kita mengakui ada masalah wealth inequality, tapi kita tak berani untuk menjawab tentang persoalan percukaian, your wealth, for example, kita cakap tentang kenapa property development tu menjadi satu industri yang sangat orang suka sebab you beli rumah, you beli property, you punya gain wealth tu takkan di-tax. And then even you inherit to your son, your grandchildren, and that wealth will not still be in your family. And it cannot be shared in the economy. So, for my question is adakah PH, even kalau PKR, even kalau keadilan, ada policy position tentang perkara ni? Bagaimana tentang wealth tax ke, inheritance tax ke, or capital gains ke, which is yang saya tahu ada parti dalam PH yang sangat anti tentang ni, tapi saya nak tahu kerana pada saya perkara tu penting. Kalau kita mengakui kesenjangan wealth dan equality satu masalah besar negara kita. Itu soalan pertama lah. Soalan kedua saya tentang you cakap tentang the state government ni akan buat macam-macam, buat kuari, potong balak, potong ni. Adakah PH atau AYU Malaysia or even PKR ke untuk put an effort to make sure to change, for me it's social contract between the state and the government, state and the federal. Yang macam maybe kita kena ubah kita punya formula how the wealth, kita punya income tax was divided ke, royalty ke. Sebab contoh macam di Kedah, di Kelantan, Terengganu, kenapa orang tu kerajaan negeri tu akan potong balak? Sebab negara state tak ada apa-apa. There is nothing for them. They only have is tanah. And kalau macam kat Selangor, kenapa kita tengok banyak kondo, banyak ni sebab kerana state government akan dapat development charges dengan buat lebih banyak kondo. Jadi saya nak tengoklah apakah PH adakah ataupun ada concrete or a document for us to refer on that, because and then sebab yang ketiga saya punya lebih kepada frustration saya lah. Saya rasa kenapa opposition tak ada langsung, bukan tak langsung lah, ada, tetapi the concrete papers that for us to bring about and to campaign on it. Sebab dia lebih kepada sekarang kita nampak polisi, bercerita pasal polisi lebih kepada soundbite. I heard from you, I heard from Rafizi, I heard from Won Chen, but I don't hear it like, okay, this is our party position, or maybe coalition maybe is too, I think it's too hard because of the different interests, but maybe your party, keadilan, bring it and take, okay, this is our positions. And we are campaigning on this. Rather than kita dengar soundbite macam kata, you boleh cakap you nak buat ni, you nak buat tu. Tapi kalau you tak ada at least a paper or a book for us to refer, to say that, oh, this is things that we will do in 100 days, in 2 days, in 2 years, in 5 years, then I think it's much more easier for us to campaign for you. That's my...
Ada soalan-soalan ini saya cuba jawab. Kalau tidak kita sampai pukul 8 saya kena pergi ke Tapah dengan Tanjung Malim lepas ni, Izzah kena pergi ke Merbuk kan. I'll try to combine. Cuma soalan CGT semua tadi itu soalan pasal tax tadi itu. Sebenarnya dia berkait rapat juga dengan soalan yang Ben tanya pasal stock exchange. So, but let me jawab soalan yang mudah dulu. Calon PKR kecuali yang dah lompat parti dulu, memang daripada dulu isytihar harta. Kami yang paling awal isytiharkan harta. Dan bukan. So there's not an issue. In fact, I think our asset declaration jauh lagi detail daripada yang akhirnya kerajaan buat dengan Pakatan Harapan lah. Memang kami kena, dia ada penyata macam mana dia spend duit. Sebab kadang-kadang dia boleh je declare sikit tapi tak masuk akal. Kereta ada 5 tapi declare harta banyak ni kan. So I don't think that's the problem lah. Pasal calon-calon kalau diberitahu kenapa mereka dipilih, obviously we have to sell them. Jadi kita kena beritahu lah. Cuma kalau sebelum ni mungkin tak dibuat secara rasmi, besar kemungkinan we will use the current website untuk orang minta jadi calon tu. Apabila proses tu dah habis juga akan digunakan untuk bukan saja umumkan tapi juga untuk pamerkan sebab credential dan sebagainya. So that's kena macam mana boleh masuk TV3. Pani Izzah masuk TV3 kan? I actually don't know sebenarnya, tapi saya ingat Media Prima lah. Mereka sekarang syarikat swasta dan dia ada pemilik swasta. Media Prima ni dia punya saham jatuh mendadak daripada 2016 sampai 2018, 2019. Dan saham syarikat media ni bergantung kepada revenue. Revenue ni bergantung kepada tontonan. Dan tontonan ini dalam keadaan rakyat Malaysia yang split. Memang lebih kurang 50% dengan PH, 50% bukan PH. Lebih kurang macam tu. Terutamanya di kawasan-kawasan bandar yang ada daya beli yang lebih tinggi. Lembah Kelang, Pulau Pinang, bandar ni semua PH, PKR selalunya. Jadi saya ingat itu satu tindakan komersial. Kalau saya pun jadi pemilik TV3, I know enough that this cannot continue for me to start having balik traction supaya airwave dan juga rancangan TV3 itu ditonton lebih menyeluruh, dan dengan bila ditonton oleh menyeluruh maka lagi senang nak dapat ads. Memanglah terpaksa dia buka seluas-luasnya lah. Jadi itu kalau tanya saya kan, daripada banyak-banyak pencapaian PH ataupun macam saya dengan Izzah, reformist daripada 1998. Actually the one that I'm most proud of sebenarnya bukan tukar kerajaan tu. You guys were too young to remember what it was in 98-2000. You never remember betapa gilanya baca media perdana. Apa thing with what we had to grow with masa zaman 98, 99, 95 dulu. It's almost like being brainwashed kan. Itu salah satu sebab kenapa saya tak suka UMNO. Sebab saya belajar luar negara, kerja luar negara, I feel like saya tak suka dibodohkan. And the instrument membodohkan ialah media perdana dulu kan. So much has changed. The fact that TV3, media perdana, utusan jauh lebih bebas, kadang-kadang lebih bebas daripada portal-portal yang online ni, menunjukkan bahawa that is the fruit of reform that we had fought for the last 20 years. Orang tak sedar sebab dia tak kena poket dan sebagainya. But that is fundamental untuk membolehkan masyarakat kita to be more active, take part, for the idea to grow. And sebab itu I'm a bit optimistic about the future, walau macam mana teruk pun kan. So I think hopefully lepas ni korang semua masuk TV3 lah kan. So kan. Then soal pasal pertahanan tu, I think you guys follow lah yang semua. Dia is a double-edged issue yang sebenarnya tak ada berita gembira. Satu ialah soal pertahanan ni ialah kita dalam hotspot, kawasan kita ni dalam kawasan hotspot kerana kita ada wilayah Laut Cina Selatan yang kontesnya itu kalau ikut dasar negara macam China, dia sampai pengaruh dia ke Laut Cina Selatan. Kemudian kita juga ada Indonesia yang merupakan salah satu menjadi kuasa besar dunia. So kita tersepit di dalam kawasan ini. Jadi pertahanan ni bukan soal main-main kan. Itu tak campur lagi di Sabah, kita ada ancaman lanun dan sebagainya kan. Jadi not only that we are in already quite a precarious territory security wise, dan kita juga bukan negara kaya. Jadi kita tak boleh nak habiskan banyak duit peruntukan untuk pertahanan macam US ke China kan. Dengan duit yang sedikit itu pun dia makan gila-gila. That's the problem. Dan mereka berselindung kerana ini adalah perolehan pertahanan. Jadi rahsia negara. Semua rahsia negara. Padahal kau pergi Google, meriam ni satu dunia tahu. Kapal ni satu dunia tahu. Spek itu semua dah ada dah. Kalau pergi tengok kepada Defense Journal, benda yang lagi detail ada lagi kan. Jadi mereka berselindung di sebalik ini selama berdekad-dekad. Sebab itu Kementerian Pertahanan ni jadi lubuk untuk curi duit. Kan? Dulu dah jadi, dah skopin bising-bising sekejap. Tapi yalah, orang ambil masa untuk faham. Itu tak campur lagi dengan moral angkatan tentera kita. Dia macam kita bawa kereta lah balik kampung. Orang lain bawa kereta yang baru semua, paling kurang pun bawa lah Vios ke Yaris kan. Engkau bawa Proton Saga 1985. How do you feel about that balik kampung? Of course lah malu semua. And then we are asking them kalau jadi apa-apa nak berperang. Satu lagi pasal perang kan. Dia kena ada latihan tentera bersama. Bukan kita perang tiap-tiap hari. So selalunya dia join simulation game kan. Macam mana dia nak pergi perang, nak buat simulation. Orang lain bawa kapal 20 biji, kau bawa sebiji. Tak boleh lah. So dia dah jadi a real critical issue tau. Dia dah sampai ke practical issue. Dan sebabnya ialah, I don't know how many billions and billions yang wasted dalam tempoh 20-30 tahun yang lepas kan. Dan sebab itu bagi saya soal pertahanan ini, dan sebab itu juga saya tumpu. Sebab sebenarnya lubuk rasuah antara yang paling besar is Kementerian Pertahanan. And critical dia tu ialah dia pertahanan negara, masa depan orang, nyawa orang semua kan. Sebab itu kalau contohnya Pakatan Harapan Menang lah dalam PKR contohnya kan, it's very clear that we have to overhaul the total procurement process. Dan dia bukan saja sebut nak kata buat tender terbuka pun susah juga. Sebab memang tak boleh tender terbuka. It's a defense. So it will always be limited tender. Dan kita juga tahu di negara-negara lain, this defense industry complex ni is real. So kalau you tak manage betul-betul, di US pun, di China pun, di France pun, memanglah ada pelobi-pelobi daripada pembuat-pembuat senjata besar ni. If you are not careful, even if you have a very transparent process dan juga you ada a vibrant local defense contractor grouping, tapi akhirnya dia masih lagi ada risiko rasuah dan sebagainya. Sebab itu bagi saya, ini bukan sesuatu yang ahli politik saja boleh cakap. I think we need a royal commission sebenarnya. Panggil general-general, jangan letak orang politik kat situ. Panggil orang yang betul-betul membina angkatan tentera kita daripada dulu, 20-30 tahun. General-general ni walaupun umur 80, still sihat lagi. I've met a lot of them. And they love this country. Sebab dia bermula daripada dia muda, atas kapal, semua ni. And tahun 70-an dan 80-an, angkatan tentera kita ni antara yang terbaik. Sebab tu dulu-dulu, korang tak lahir lagi masa tu. Dulu-dulu selalu ada berita tentang joint military exercise. Dan sekarang dah tak ada tu. I tak perasan sangat dah. Dulu banyak. Setiap tahun tu benda besar. Ada joint military exercise. I don't see that anymore tau kan. Jadi, don't get politicians involved. Bring the experts, the general and so on. Dan jangan letak yang baru-baru ni. Cari yang betul-betul ramai general semua ni. Cari a very senior statesman yang tahu semua ni. Put them on a royal commission. They need to come back to a government to put in place a robust procurement process. And not just procurement, but how do we go about fixing this issue about local defense contractors. Sebab dulu idea boosted ni sebab nak suruh defense contractors lah. Buat boosted, letak general semua gitu-gitu gini supaya kita kurangkan syarikat-syarikat macam MA Analytics ni mari daripada tah mana-mana ni tiba-tiba boleh bagi supply meriam kan. That's the whole idea supaya these generals ni semua dia dah tahu semua, they go to the other side, dia boleh balance and miliknya pun milik angkatan tentera anyway, pesara-pesara kan. But obviously something went wrong because you know if boosted, tak ada campur tangan kerajaan dan sebagainya, LCS wouldn't happen, Perimuka wouldn't happen dan sebagainya kan. So I don't have the total solution or even so much idea. All I know is that it require a total overhaul and relook, dan perkara ini give it to the best of the people yang boleh buat, which are the people who are. Tadi ada pasal CGT, pasal distribution, before I go to soalan pasal market. I used to be at your age. And when I was young, I had this idea that can be seen as very anti-wealth. That I felt that it is the government's job to tax people and redistribute. Of course, people always say, the left who got it right are the left who went right. Do you get what I mean? As they grow older. Okay, kita kena balance sebenarnya. Ini pandangan saya mengenai soal percukaian, soal polisi dan soal menangani wealth inequality. Sebab wealth inequality ni ada di mana-mana masyarakat macam mana kan. Pertamanya, saya tak tahu orang lain, tapi saya tidak melihat cukai sebagai mekanisme untuk kutip duit. It is not. Cukai adalah mekanisme untuk kita menggalakkan, and that's the priority first. Tax collection tu is more or less second priority. And that's exactly in Islam pun. If you read Ibn Khaldun will not advocate to you tax semua orang. Because the vibrancy of a society datang daripada individual yang ada the right industri yang betul-betul berkembang sendiri. Sebab tu kerajaan kena ambil cukai sesikit yang mungkin. Okay now. So number one, I don't see tax policy sebagai cara untuk kutip duit untuk redistribute. Because we have seen the failure of the 70s left bila mereka buat begitu. Sebab the failure of the 70s left lah yang tax and spend, it nearly brought the Western world and the world economy to collapse, and it gave rise to people like Thatcher and Reagan. So we've gone through that process tau. Dia ada hyperinflation semua, kerja tak ada, tapi kerajaan akan tax, so dia jadi cyclical. The more you tax, the more you kill. Tapi it's never enough untuk bagi sebab it's hyperinflation kan. So I'll be a bit careful kalau kita nak address issue inequality by taxing and distributing. That's number one. Number two, to me, the real purpose of good taxation policy is to divert the resources of the state as well as the private resources kepada sektor-sektor yang paling produktif, yang akan ada kesan paling baik to lift up the country and society daripada to manage this wealth inequality. So on that basis, contohnya soal CGT kan, capital gains tax kan. Kalau Malaysia, contohnya, is US, I think we can do capital gains tax. Remember, I was among the first politician yang bercakap pasal capital gains tax lebih kurang 10 tahun lepas. I may not be too keen now. Sebabnya ialah macam yang Ben Kwek sebut tadi, our stock market is being hammered to death. We will cross below 1,400 very soon. Kan? So kita tiap-tiap hari trillions of value daripada syarikat-syarikat dan ekonomi kita kena wipe out. So dalam keadaan kita sangat terkesan dengan interest rate hike di US, dalam keadaan market rasakan Malaysia ni kurang menarik, which I will address what Ben's brought up, man. You put in CGT now, you will basically make our market a lot less attractive. And then it will bring another round of capital outflow. So it's not against CGT per se. It's a question of how exactly, ada nyamuk kat sini, berapa bulan ni? Is the timing of CGT now lah. Because bentuk-bentuk lain gains tax ni kita dah ada real property gains tax. Isu dia ialah kita tak ada capital gains tax, terutamanya on portfolios. So orang yang buat duit daripada gains, daripada stock exchange semua, flip company semua tak boleh kan. Kecuali you want to do restrictive 2-3 bahagian saja. But even then, given the market state now, it will make us a lot less attractive, worse than what it is today. Okay. So I'll be a bit more careful about CGT. The problem with the other thing about CGT is this. Agaknya siapa yang paling banyak sekali duk main share equity kat Malaysia? JLIC, geng-geng JLIC, EPF, tabung haji, khazanah semua kan. You put in CGT now, profit dia turun, dividend turun, cyclical. So kita ada structural issue with the market. The fact that saham kita kebanyakannya equity tu kebanyakannya memang heavily weighted by JLIC semua kan. Jadi kecuali kita dah selesaikan semua masalah ini, make it as vibrant, and ada daya tarikan yang lebih daripada soal do I get an extra 0.5% return or 1% return, and CGT will make a difference to that. Once you dah bring up the attractiveness of our companies and our stock exchange up to a certain level, you buat CGT pun, kalau dia calculate, return dia will go down by 1%, maybe lah not as competitive to another market, tapi kalau dia rasa this country has future, has growth semua, then they will stay. But otherwise now, you put CGT now, it will impact kita punya local JLICs. At the same time, I think most probably you will get more exodus kan. Coming back to inequality kan, ada beberapa jenis inequality dalam masyarakat kan. Naturally memang akan ada inequality. Dia tak ada, kecuali we are a communist country lah. But we know that doesn't work kan. So memang betul akan ada yang kaya, yang miskin, yang betul-betul kaya. Satu model yang inequality yang teruk ni is something that you see in US, unbridled capitalism. Cuma yang kaya-kaya dia tu, dia bukan kaya sebab dia sakau duit. Dia kaya sebab dia bila dia dah berjaya, dia ada access to more capital, and kalau dia rajin, nothing can stop them. Kan? So that's the US punya model kan. Masalah kita dekat Malaysia ni, inequality ni, okay, compared to US, paling kurang di US, walaupun dia ada inequality, tapi dia ada one basic feature that can sustain the economy. To a certain extent, you also see that dekat China now. Which is, kalau you rajin, kalau you cerdik, you buat kerja, betul-betul, you fokus, you boleh jadi kaya. And you cannot stop that tau. That's what we need in a society. Kan? So you cannot put taxation that penalize people like this. Because it's in our best interest to get as many people untuk rajin kerja and try to move better and make more money. Of course lah, I'll come to the taxation a bit after this kan. But that kind of equality is expected, tapi dia ada multiplying effect to ekonomi. Masalah kita ialah inequality dekat Malaysia ni, sebab yang kaya-kaya tu banyaknya dia sakau duit. Dia bukan kaya sebab dia rajin gila daripada orang miskin, buat kerja, pergi belajar, buka company, bagi kerja kepada semua orang sampai dia kaya-kaya. I have no problem with those people. Aku ada masalah, kau baru keluar 20 tahun, universiti, tapi sebab bapak kau menteri, kau dapat kontrak 800 juta. I have a problem with that. Orang yang tak pernah tahu apa semua, tiba-tiba ada 100 ekar tanah. License, dia bayar saja, tiba-tiba dia dah license 5 bilion. Daripada 5 bilion itu, dia beli semua syarikat. That is our inequality yang kita kena fight dulu. Once you move and settle that, then hopefully you provide the conducive environment for people to really work hard semua. That's where the taxation policy is important. Which is, kita nak pastikan bahawa taxation policy itu tak penalize people like this, but at the same time, dia provide social safety net for the most vulnerable. That's where kalau boleh you want to make sure that education is free, health is free, untuk orang tua, they have enough facilities for them. Itu kerja-kerjaan. Bukannya ambil duit untuk pastikan semua orang kaya. No. You want to be rich, you work hard. That's how it should be. The government should remove any semua so that everyone has a open playing field. So that siapa yang successful you can go. But tak semua orang boleh jadi macam itu. Ada yang akan miskin, akan ada yang akan ada susah. Our job as a government, if we become government, is we try to help these people and provide them opportunity so that there is social mobility, anak dia ke, through pendidikan, so that they can go out of that. If we get that right, that's how insyaAllah we can fix inequality in the country. But that's why, there's no short-term measure. But kalau kita letak CGT, we'll be fine. Sebab itu dulu, and even now, I'm totally against GST. Not because GST is bad. I mean, I'm trained in GST. GST ni and taxation as a whole is an opium for government. Kalau kerajaan daripada awal, dia boleh kutip cukai dengan mudah, what do you think they will do? Dia kutip cukai lah. Kalau dia dah buat GST, start dengan 6%. Next year, tak cukup 20 bilion. Naik 5%. Naik lagi. They will continue to do it without fixing the problem. Sebab itu I say, selagi kita tak fix kita punya corruption, kita punya governance problem, you put GST is just be a means for government after government to just collect tax and spend. Collect tax because mudah. Sangat mudah. Kalau macam corporate tax, income tax, dia susah. Kalau dia naik corporate tax sikit, orang lari. GST ni tak. GST, consumption. You makan, you bayar lah. You makan, you bayar. People have to consume. So, eventually, dia akan jadi a shortcut to government untuk collect tax. What we need to do is we have to fix all these governance issues semua when everything we are quite ready, yang duit-duit semua ni tak sakau, kalau ada orang curi duit they will go, then we can start substituting by reducing corporate tax and income tax and putting in GST. So it's a sequence of things, kan? And finally to ban the issue, I don't think any government, to be frank, can fix the problem of our stock market and therefore, our foreign portfolios, outflows, the fact that even if you IPO nowadays, there's nothing, the stock keeps dropping. It even katakanlah, hypothetically, if the stock feels that kalau BN menang buy, PH menang sell, kan? It's temporary. Because our problem of our market is systemic. It is not a bull market, a bear market. This is not really an adjustment of the market. It's actually core, it's systemic. And the core of it, and I know a lot of people out there tak suka, especially all these professionals working at all the public listed company. My view is this, man. Our companies do not have a beyond this market. All our blue chip companies, apart from 45, yeah, are basically local domestic players with traditional business who are big in this country and make money with this country, and it's dependent on this market. And if you are an investor, I mean, what kind of earning prospect for that? I mean, it's like the country is wobbling around. Obviously, your earning prospect, your growth prospect is also wobbling around. You may actually get a temporary relief when government announces budget, or we will spend this much development project budget in this. Masa tu sekejap you dapat okay lah. So you spend time untuk dapatkan new tender dalam your order book, dia naik sekejap. But as a whole, in my view, investors come to emerging markets when they see a better growth prospect and a scalable one. And sebab itu, on that basis, a lot of our players are not sexy. Bila dia tak sexy, orang tengok, okay lah, palm oil macam ni kan. There's lack of innovation, there's lack of push of scalability to much bigger market. We are not even regional champions. You know, our market by itself is quite small, tapi kita tak boleh nak gunakan Malaysian market as a springboard to this vast 600 million market. So until we fix that, that issue is structural. It's not stock market problem. Sebab itu, I've always felt that, you know, there will come a time when we have to try to MBO as many companies as possible. Let the good ones thrive, let the bad ones go down. We have to make sure that, tadi saya sebut pasal grant, how, you know, we have to create that conducive environment beyond some of these announcements that have been made that convince the market that there is a mid-term and long-term plan to bring creativity and innovation in this country. There's none, no. So unless kita give the right signal, put the right policies, and then show some early success, early results, and the government has to engage and convince the market earnestly from time to time, you will see this happening, whether it's BN or whether it's PH taking over. And it's a mid-term thing, and it's a huge job, because dia berkait semua. At the end of the day, I think you tanya siapa pun, people will say, we are stuck. Our problem is our economy is stuck where we are, and where we are now has very little growth prospect, the kind of return that international investors want to see, because they can get better elsewhere. Most probably you would have done the same thing with your portfolios. And so, Izzah?
Terima kasih atas soalan. Saya nak tambah mungkin permulaan dari segi pertahanan. If you remember, some years ago, this was when Hishamuddin was helming the position. Dalam jurnal penulisan terbitan sektor pertahanan dibangkitkan, Malaysia tidak melabur secukupnya dalam sektor pertahanan sehingga kita terkebelakang. Saya masih ingat lagi, terkebelakang dan kalah dengan Vietnam. Ini bukan semasa pandemik, ini semasa Hisham jadi Menteri Pertahanan, dibangkitkan dalam sidang IISS La Shangri-La punya security dialog di Singapura. And it's very important to understand, dia berbalik kepada apa yang Raf sebut, systemic. So bila kita tak melabur secukupnya dan menyasar kepada perkara-perkara yang penting, contoh campur tangan yang disiasat oleh PAC dari segi bentuk bagi kapal LCS, akhirnya menghasilkan pembaziran, maha pembaziran yang kita masih lagi terpaksa bergelut untuk deliver, untuk hantar ke Malaysia. Jadi untuk tahun ini, contohnya dalam sesi audit PAC, banyak lagi keutamaan yang diperlukan. APMM, bot-bot termasuklah pelaburan bagi nelayan kita yang selalu kalah dengan nelayan Vietnam dan Thailand. Because we don't really invest in better equipments or boats or protect the Zone A based artisanal fishermen. Sedih tau kerana artisanal fishermen ni sampai ICS di Singapura buat kajian nak mengatakan mereka ini bukan sekadar nelayan. Mereka adalah pemegang khazanah dan budaya sesebuah negara. Dia bercakap tentang nelayan Malaysia because they preserve a certain dignity, a certain identity. Tapi kalau kita tak melabur, kita fikir tentang kapal-kapal besar yang saya tak nafikan kepentingannya, tapi terpalit pula dengan rasuah dan tambah lagi dengan kegagalan labur pada peringkat awal, then you come to a position where we are not able to compete with the poorer countries in the region. And this is a big problem. Maka antara cadangan balas PAC, because APMM mereka menambah untuk development expenditure tahun 2023 719 juta berbanding dengan 103.8 juta ringgit tahun ni. Can you imagine tak menunjukkan betapa perlunya APMM kita nak jaga maritim, nak jaga pelbagai perkara. Kerana kehilangan akibat rompakan hasil laut, it's not just millions. It's in the region of billions. That's how much we lost out. And hasil laut, kalau zaman saya muda ada ikan terubuk, kita boleh bayangkan nak makan. Hari ini I think ikan gembung pun. And it's a real security issue, right? Because it's our livelihood. Kita nak makan, kita punya security, kedaulatan, dan akhirnya dia kena tambah dengan, this is where I feel climate is everything. What you think is not important? Guys, suhu naik, padi hang tumbuh tak? Hasil tambah tak? Semua kena. Sektor pertanian semua terkesan. Hasil berkurangan. Jadi bagaimana kita nak meyakinkan dan melahirkan argument ini supaya setiap negeri faham sumber air, hasil tani, ternakan kita lembu semua kuih. Because dah lah dedak nak sampai daripada overseas, it's a huge problem. I met with 100 of penternak di Matampau. Dedak yang mereka guna kadang-kadang makanan pellet. Simple thing like pellet. Tapi pellet has no nutritional value. So even these things, why are we have an agency like Mardi? So again, it's about priority. Patutnya kita dah hasilkan bukan saja benih padi yang lebih banyak, bukan yang 297 hasilnya, dia kosong dalam dia, tapi more variety of benih dan cara-cara lain bagi melindungi hasil kita, termasuklah at this range dengan punya banyak monopoli. Kenapa kita what's the use of having so many offices? I just don't understand it. So there is something severe and serious. And I would add here, that's why in the early negotiations of TPPA, Amerika, dia masukkan pertanian dia dalam dia punya defense, sector. So dia boleh protect. So it is completely, it's time for us to invest in the different sectors in our own people, which I think we're not doing enough. Instead, we invest in the large monopolies. Saya tak mahu sebut agensi mana, kita tahu kan, pasal kita ni zaman Tun Razak, we really invest so much. Tak cukup nak reform kementerian, tubuhkan agensi lain. Dan ini bersambung semasa Najib. Ingat pemandu, EPU tak ada harga ke? So sometimes you don't want to go through the root of the problem. You don't want to reform, but you want to go shortcut. I create a new thing to be announced to people. Well, I think those days are over because nak tak nak, those are the talent pool that you have to invest, reform and work on. Ni, human capital. Sama lah macam anak-anak muda kita. This is where I feel a little bit more hopeful. Why? Because in terms of our youth, the laporan Yusof Ishak Institute, ICS, dia kata work and wages of Malaysian youth. Untuk golongan muda 15 hingga 24 tahun, 32.7% yang punyai kelulusan pengajian tinggi berbanding hanya 24.7% dalam umur 25 ke atas. That means the younger ones are far more kiranya mereka punyai kepakaran dan kelulusan. How do we harness this? Sama dengan defense. How do we harness our defense, bukan sebagai satu lubuk untuk membuat kewangan. Bahayanya sebagaimana Rafizi sebut, kita sudah ada white paper tapi tidaklah semenyeluruh berbanding dengan Australian white paper of 2016. Ini saya bangkitkan di parlimen. Kenapa? Dia bagi tahu how many bullets do you need, berapa bentuk procurement yang nak buat. Dia dah rancang. Dia tak rancang hari ini baru fikir. Dia rancang 5 tahun, 10 tahun apa yang kita perlukan. Dan selepas itu, yang kami bawa dalam PAC, kena wujudkan jawatan kuasa perolehan dalam bidang pertahanan. Ya, setengah perkara kena buat direct tender. We understand. It's defense. Takkan nak buat open tender. Tetapi, takkanlah di peringkat parlimen, kita tak boleh deliberate detail. Takkan nak tunggu skandal. Dan nak keluarkan forensiknya report, Raf pun tahu. Kami dok tanya ni, hampa ni yang forensik versi mana? Yang ditandatangani atau yang tak ditandatangani? Pasal yang tak ditandatangani, ada nama lain. Tak payah go detail lah, masuk kes mahkamah. Tapi nak maksudkan dalam 4 tahun, it took us 4 years. And God knows how many demands sampai kena hentak meja nak dapatkan, please disclose the forensic audit. And only lepas kita hentak meja, dia, I don't want to say the name of the agency lah. Tiba-tiba, ya pagi tadi kami telah hantar laporan kepada SPI, pihak AGC dan akan didakwa. Macam, So selama ni tak ada apa-apa, tapi bila nak keluar kat media, you know when it's going to be disclosed, the moves are immediate. So there is a clear problem and that's going to affect our defense sector, and defense is not just defense. It's the entire security of Malaysia in the region. Saya bawakan kenapa penting. Selepas ini di manakah pengkalan ibu kota Indonesia? Bye-bye Jakarta, it's gonna be. Dekat dengan kita ke jauh? It's like you baling bola je sampai daripada Sabah dan Sarawak, and that's why how we empower, how we kind of work together with the different developmental dynamic that Sarawak is focusing on matters. Berbalik kepada jawapan yang Halif tadi tanyakan, dari segi the state federal contract, because it's changed. You can't expect a country yang berjiran dengan Nusantara nak kau tahu kepada federal. It's not going to work that way. Their development pathway, dia kena pastikan dia terkedepan untuk labur di Indonesia. Or you're going to allow other countries. If Malaysia kena focus in terms of the top interest and top priority, kita punya kepentingan bergantung kepada berapa banyak kita mampu bertapak di sana. So this is important in terms of considering it. Dan kalau menteri luar sekarang ni isu nak menyelamatkan warga Malaysia. Warga Malaysia yang tertipu dengan skim, mereka datang daripada keluarga miskin. Tapi untuk semua kos bagi menyelamatkan yang mangsa, keluarga miskin tu kena bayar pada Wisma Putra. Beribu duduk di hotelnya dan sebagainya. So the sophistication is not addressing issue scheme, issue bahaya, issue cyber security. Don't get me started lah dengan berapa analis yang kita ada. Not end today's session. Tapi isunya, we have the papers. Now you asked just now, saya nak mulakan dengan multidimensional poverty index. Daripada peringkat awal, kenapa mereka tak nak ubah? Because it means financially you have to give more to those in the bottom 40. Dan dalam bottom 40, ada yang top M40, the first tier, dia dekat je, dia termasuk dalam B60. Gaji dia tak tinggi mana. Tapi kalau kita tak mampu untuk garap, mereka kehilangan peluang just because you bagi RM200, contoh. Dia ada ke political and social capital untuk climb up the next level or get a better job opportunity? You consider this, and that's why it's much more sophisticated. So for me, when we produce the report, we commissioned Professor Fatimah Kari, foremost expert in poverty eradication daripada Universiti Melaya, dan kita pastikan bila kita measure B40, kita tengok apa impact COVID kepada keluarga dan apa impact COVID kepada single mom atau single father berbanding dengan ibu dan ayah ada untuk menyara keluarga. Dia kesannya berlainan. Ya. Dan kalau dilihat juga dalam konteks ini, it goes back to your question. Ya. Whether we as a society looking at wealth inequality, I think the bigger problem in Malaysia yang kita kena grapple with, we are not totally egalitarian. Bukan hanya dari segi dana, duit, tapi dari segi macam mana kita melayan dari segi undang-undang. Adakah semua orang mendapat layanan yang sama? Dari segi bagaimana kita melihat strata sosial dalam masyarakat. So, I think we have to improve that. Professor Ha Jun Chang, he wrote this brilliant book. I'm sure some of you know, 23 People Don't Tell You About Economics. Yang baru ni, Inedible Economics daripada Korea Selatan beliau. Dia kata semasa pandemik, kita sebutlah semua sektor tutup, hampa tak penting. Yang penting frontliners. Yang penting, tak boleh berfungsi sebuah negara. But how come they paid the least? They paid so little. Even though, to be fair, they are the ones that you need. They're most essential banding dengan yang lain yang tidak ataupun kurang essential. So, these are the things we kind of have, it's important. For me, penting untuk kita bicarakan. Dan Profesor Lee Ho On telah mengeluarkan terbitan yang sangat terperinci membentang kepada semua ahli Parlimen Keadilan lepas 50 tahun apa kesan NEP. NEP pun mengatakan dari segi usaha untuk menyahkan kemiskinan, jangan ada identifikasi antara kaum, ras dan juga sektor dan aktiviti pekerjaan. Dan beliau menyatakan daripada terma bumi putera, 54% Melayu bumi putera, 16% adalah daripada Sabah dan Sarawak. Dan kesusahan dan kemelut ekonomi yang melanda mereka menarik bawah purata statistik dan jumlah yang merana. So, why are we not looking at it in a more detailed manner? Tengok region mana yang perlu MPI di Sabah, ada keperluan apa. Di Kedah, a lot of poverty, Sometimes kita lihat perbezaan antara Pulau Pinang dan Kedah, Kita tengok juga berapa jumlah kolam tadahan yang Kedah ada. Bagaimana sistem pengurusan air mereka. Apa berlaku di Kedah kalau banjir, contohnya, kerana sumber Sungai Muda tu kesan pada 3 negeri. Perlis, Kedah, Pulau Pinang. Jadi keutamaan negeri Kedah, selain ada bergaduh dengan menteri besar dia, adalah kita kena lihat, kita perlukan a stronger talent pool. Di setiap negeri kena ada headhunting di mana exco. Back to reform of the social contract, kerana takkanlah dia macam, if you are a state, you are forced to depend on monetizing your assets, balak dan sebagainya. You are forced to. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying you are forced to. Okay? Jadi, kita kena rubah. Ini masa yang terbaik dengan apa yang berlaku, berdekatan dengan Sarawak, dengan ledakan dan desakan bagi perubahan. Pada saya, this is important. We're not saying desakan perubahan itu hanya satu hala. Saudara-saudari, what happened in 2018, it's like, basically, it's a watershed moment, right? Because people, can you imagine talking about change of government like back then? Saya ingat masa dengan Rafizi kita kat London masa tu kan, bila ramai orang nak pukul you lah, I duduk diam je. Saya masih ingat lagi, memang tak boleh kita bayangkan, tapi rakyat mengubah semuanya dan di peringkat pusat kita mampu untuk melihat perubahan. Maksudnya change in federal government. Anyone who doesn't perform, out you go. So like, that's why I always repeat what Safiah tells me. My elder daughter kata, your contract is 5 years, ahli parlimen. Lepas tu you have to apply for a new job contract. And that's how it should be with politicians lah, kan? It's a job. Maka kita nak perform our mission, it might not be the best of job, it might be toxic, I gotta say, tapi isunya jangan kita ingat selama-lamanya. Like for me and Raf, it's a mission. So our important focus is on how do you make sure the next generation and the people you choose can helm the challenges through the party moving forward. Dan atas dasar itulah kita tak boleh lupa, dan this goes back to what Ben has said. Yeah. So I haven't finished about the missing middle. So you look at the budget, The budget gave a tax break, maximum monthly income given relief is for those, about 8,333 ringgit a month. It's the middle M40. So they're not really the rich. Tapi rekomendasi pakar is not give a tax break alone. Dia kata M40 di Malaysia tidak dilindungi oleh a social protection or pension that is sufficient for them. So the government again is not thinking systemically. The papers are there. It's just we need political will to implement them. So I would argue what we should be doing after this lost generation is a universal child benefit scheme. Because so many children are in vulnerable spots. So many children, if you invest early enough, you will have the rewards later masa mereka membesar. Dan keluarga-keluarga yang memang miskin, anak-anak selalunya akan menjadi hampir pasar malam ternampak kan. Siapa yang duk goreng sebelah tu, anak dia duk kat mana, tunggu mak atau ayah tengah masak. So these are the groups that we have to consider so that they can they can enjoy some degree of social mobility, and in turn that will help us in the economy. So going to Ben's question, now, I would say this, one of the things I felt when we were speaking to investors right after Pakatan won, they wanted to have a session with us, want to give in their suggestions and ideas, is political goodwill. Political goodwill. And I think the 22 months that was quite painful. I think Raf and I, it was like one of the most excruciatingly painful moments. I think that bitter lesson has left an imprint. So even you hear Raf today, usually he's the one person who will never say, if he said, I was right 10 years ago, I'm still right today, But today he's saying, well, it's important to be very measured. How will CGT impact the different parts of the economy? What is the stock market like in Malaysia? Like what Lee Hock Wan said, kalau nak rujuk kepada kegagalan NEP pun, tengok apa perkara yang membantu. Lebih ramai Malay middle class was created from that period. Tetapi ada juga masalah lain di mana hanya segelintir in the top elites because of our unequal society yang mendapat peluang berbanding dengan mereka, termasuklah Bumi Putera Sabah dan Sarawak yang masih lagi dalam kancah kemiskinan. So he suggested an expiry or transition period for all the programs in a more detailed manner. Memanglah letih, memanglah renyah. Tapi the devil is always in the details. So we can, I'm quite leftist I would say. And it's good to discuss. Tetapi if I say and recommend something that happened, that is supposed to be implemented without due diligence, without evidence and research, without a pilot, then I would be doing a disservice because we're taking it up as policy. Jadi pada saya dalam hal ini, kita mengambil kira langkah yang lebih berhati-hati. Kita nak pastikan apa sahaja yang kita buat. First, you take into account the different positions of stakeholders. Tapi pada masa yang sama, kita juga jangan lupa untuk melibatkan pakar. Bukan pakar Profesor Kangkung yang selalunya takut nak memenuhi permintaan politik itu atau ahli politik ini. Tetapi real experts who understand the challenges of the economy. I remember there was one book by Banerjee, Poor Economics, dengan Daflo. Dia rujuk kepada banyak perancangan untuk menyelesaikan masalah kemiskinan dan ada yang gagal. Dia ingat dia tahu lagi, tapi adakah kita pernah hidup satu hari di sebuah perkampungan sebagai golongan B40? Kalau kita tak faham mana buat transisi itu ataupun ini. So it's very important for the engagement to take place. For Permatang Pauh, we started dengan mula-mula 80 orang penternak yang tak layan pun masa pandemik mula-mula menyerang. Apa yang saya tahu tentang nak menjaga lembu, I don't know anything. Raf maybe knows better, but I don't know much. Tapi bila kita maklum, pakar menyasarkan dalam masa setahun, pakcik-pakcik, kak sekalian yang bersama dalam sektor penternakan, haiwan ruminan, akan naik harga pellet yang memang tak berkhasiat pun. Dan bila dah naik untuk kali kelima, mereka jumpa saya dan kita kumpulkan sampai 100 untuk mendapatkan pandangan terkini tentang apa yang perlu mereka buat bagi menyelamatkan keadaan dan memastikan mereka tidak terus terbeban dengan pembaziran dan kehilangan dan kerugian dan sebagainya. So for me, the engagement, sometimes when you start, you will start rolling forward. And I would say maybe one of the key things untuk kita ke depan adalah memastikan kita benar-benarlah melabur dalam negara kita, as in our people. I feel right now yang kita ketandusan, kita ada rasa sangat kecewa, tapi kita rasa kecewa juga dengan tanah air. Sedangkan yang perlu kita buat sekarang, even governments, is just to entrust your people, believe in your people. You know, don't belittle them. Maka sama ada bakat-bakat dan segala idea yang datang menerusi a lot of ventures. Permudahkan. You make it easy for people. So the ease of doing business is not difficult. It's just difficult to get there. But identifying how do you make the shortcuts and short circuit the bureaucracy, for me, that is going to revive a lot of parts of political boomers lah from the equation, inshallah. I mean, they're a pain to everybody. But what's more importantly is to make sure the country can move forward without them impeding or disrupting our efforts, insyaAllah. But I still believe akhirnya dari segi dasar kita kena lihat daripada pengenalan beberapa cukai dan implikasi. Sebelum ini kami dalam mesyuarat Majlis Presiden, I don't want to repeat what we said lah, but we were very clear. Do not bulldoze any decision until you get expertise, feedback, until you engage with different stakeholders. Some of you were very critical when Kula Segaran introduced RM1,050 pada peringkat permulaan untuk gaji minima secara berfasa. Ya, saya juga quite critical. Tapi bila saya bercakap dengan pihak-pihak peniaga SME dan juga dia micro and medium, ya, mereka mengatakan kalau you maklum hormat kami ni, at least we understand, we want to give better pay to our workers. But you don't engage with us, tiba-tiba bagi bom 1,500 just for elections in the middle of a persidangan parti, you will destroy all of us at once. Jadi pada saya, secara berfasa, komunikasi dan memaklumkan usaha kita untuk melabur dalam tenaga kita is part of the solution. Lastly is buruh, because saya rasa banyak laungan populis mengatakan ya kita nak menyahkan pekerja asing, tapi kalau hari ini pecat semua, tak semestinya esok pekerja tempatan secara automatik dapat diserap oleh sektor perkilangan, sektor perladangan, sektor penternakan dan juga sektor perindustrian. It doesn't work that way. Jadi kita masih lagi hadapi beberapa ejen saja dipilih. Orang tunggu nak ambil pekerja ni daripada before subuh, by time 11 in the morning habis dah. So in the end you have a shortfall. What happens kalau ada shortfall? Siapa nak bantu dengan hasil-hasil di semua sektor? So that is for me the best thing to do. Tak payah sebut lah, ramai orang attack. Kata ayuh Malaysia duk cakap tak sebut tentang external pressures. Come on lah, everyone knows external pressures exist. Everyone's facing the same challenge. But when you had the chance in the first phase to invest in businesses, untuk protect your SMEs, untuk introduce the force majeure laws supaya kontrak yang tak adil dibatalkan, why didn't you? So for me simple. You go through history. Jangan sebut, nak cakap sejarah, kena tengok sejarah dalam kontinuum yang panjang. Tak boleh contoh titik ni, titik tu. Yeah, for me it's a continuum and you look at the historic progression of what was done. And for me, that's why we have to make sure in this, elections, people not just vote, but people understand it has severe political and policy implications that will either bury us further or go ahead. Malaysia ni kita sangat kaya dan kita sangat berjaya. Dan pada saya memang it's just sad lah, for a country that is really gifted and talented and of course blessed, that we, should really deserve better governance, inshallah. So to that end, we try. I think that's about that. But I feel like when you go back, you also need to continue where we need to hear from you. We need to get your feedback. I wouldn't have known half the things that I experienced during the MCO without people telling me, sama ada keluarga B40 ataupun penternak. They talk and they spoke to us. And I think that's what governments need to do more, is to just listen. Because you're not listening enough, you're just telling people what to do in this less than egalitarian society of ours. Okay, thank you.
Izzah has to go. I mean, I wouldn't has to go. Anak aku tengah panggil kot. Very quickly, but we'll try to make it very short. I think we have to leave by 5:30 kot lah. Yeah. So fire away, anyone. Mike, this is here, there's there, tadi ada somewhere. Izzah has to leave because she has to catch a flight, but it's okay. Have the pleasure of my answering you. Boleh?
Saya rasa benda ni tak sepatutnya ada bila suara orang muda ni dinafikan oleh mungkin saya cakap kebetulan saya kat tempat saya, orang lama yang nafikan suara orang muda ni, dan dia buat ketika tu ada okey, dan saya fikir sendiri, sebenarnya benda ni tak ada. Tapi bila saya join dalam PKR sendiri, saya lihat benda ni berlaku. Maknanya senior-senior yang lebih 3 term berkuasa, mereka rasa mereka ni orang lama, dan bila orang baru masuk, dia macam ada satu sekatan. So saya fikir macam mungkin bila saya menyuarakan beberapa pendapat yang sepatutnya benda tu untuk kita bincang, tetapi benda ni tidak langsung diberi peluang, dan malah suara yang anak muda bawa ni diketepikan. So yang saya datang daripada pengundi atas pagar ni, yang saya lihat pada calon, bila saya masuk pada parti, of course untuk next election saya akan sepatutnya saya akan melihat pada calon, tapi disebabkan saya masuk dalam parti tu sih, saya terpaksa dalam dilema yang at the end saya akan undi calon tersebut sebab saya nak parti saya menang. So soalan saya lebih kepada saya nak minta orang kata semangat sikit daripada saudara Rafizi tentang anak muda yang masuk dalam politik, dan mungkin ada setengah kes dia dinafikan hak untuk bersuara. Yang kedua berkenaan dengan adakah untuk calon-calon yang akan datang ini, yang saya dengar sebelum ni dia kata setiap calon hanya akan berkhidmat 2 term. Sebab saya lihat kalau kebanyakan ahli politik bila dah lepas 2 term tu, dia jadi macam naik lemak, dia agak teruk kat situ. Itu je lah. So
hello, this is regarding what's your policy about, my example is environmental, especially deforestation, involvement of state companies in deforestation actions. So the argument that has been flying around out there is that these deforestation policies or agreements were based on previous decisions of previous governments. I don't really agree with that. There is an agreement, yes, it's binding, but there's a termination clause. And if it affects environmental issues, which is actually a public interest matter, so why should we still carry on policies or decisions by previous government that will impact us now, and we have seen examples out there, the flooding, the landslides. It's not those are not isolated incidents, right? For example, and especially if these agreements were entered against state forestry laws, it should actually be deemed as void from the start. So let the company sue the state government. Don't preempt the decisions of the court, because it's a bit short-term, in my opinion. I'm not an expert on environment or whatever it is, but it's very short-term thinking. You want to save millions now when there are bigger disasters down the road. So maybe if you guys were to win in the future, it's a bit easier to go back on decisions of state governments or federal governments who are not within your party. But what happens if these decisions were made by those within your coalition, within your party? That's my question. Would you actually have the courage and the strength to do what is right when those decisions were made by your own colleagues? Thanks.
Assalamualaikum. Haikal. Okay, saudara mention banyaklah pasal kita punya economic structure ni depends on three things, which is oil, palm oil and assembly sectors. Okay, soalan saya, macam mana you nak champion untuk scale up or move away from these three sectors, economic sectors, in order to give better salary to the people and give more value to the economy. Yang kedua, mantra untuk election. Dulu 2018 kita ada this mantra, hapus GST. It require 2 words je. Hapus GST. I can say to my friend, hapus GST brother, only. Okay? But now we are going to election dalam masa terdekat. What is our mantra? Adakah hapus rasuah? Kalau hapus rasuah, pengkhianat pun dia claim they are more clean than BN. So what is simple message that you can bring to us for us to escalate to my neighbors and families and etc. Itu je. Thank you.
Let me answer pasal I've said that I think we didn't do enough, and my position is clear. I would have been more daring, to be frank, and so but this is also a case of different personalities, different group of people have different views. I think if you are in my shoes, and we are going to election, we have to juggle all this. When the position is very clear that as best as possible, of course, the fiduciary duty to the public to make sure that you balance between putting a stop to all this, at the same time, there is a concern about legal implications. I mean, that's given. They have to manage it again. They are expected to minimize either way. But if you are in our shoes, when there is a clarity about the position, but the bureaucracy, the decision, it takes longer, then my option is, do I make it as the single most important issue that eclipses everything else in the party or in our preparation to go for general election? So balancing it as what we are doing now, internally, obviously, you hammer as much as possible. But what happens when finally, when it goes back to the state government takes a different view, and that's their local standby as the exco. Okay, what do you do next after that? Because then, do you pick a fight continuously, or do you sack them, or do you so actually that's the difficulty that we are facing now when it's so close to election. in terms of legal, and what I can share is this. I mean, I used to think that chief minister will basically decide as they are. But the process is that any decision that can have a legal implication, especially as something to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, obviously the state legal advisor has a locus standi in the exco. So over the years, then I realized, if you are a Menteri Besar, unless you are a character like me, who say that, I will decide and I will take the risk. The buck stops at me, even if the state legal advisor advised otherwise and it is recorded in the exco. Normally, most people don't do that. So that's also the nitty-gritty, which I hope the public understands. Because when there is a legal precedent, and to be fair, in the early part of Pakatan administration, I suppose the first administration, Tan Sri Khalid dulu, they were, because we were quite firm, and there were cases that we basically reversed, or we took back the land that was given. Some of those, actually, when it was brought to the court, we lost the case. So naturally, this, the advice that would be given to the exco from time to time is to be a lot, to exercise caution when it comes to this. So there are all these administrative issues that, but that's, that's part and parcels of the AGC and so on, which you understand, that's part and parcel. So I'm trying to give an insight into the operation of the nitty-gritty that perhaps, it's quite, because I know before this one I felt the same way. Why couldn't you just do it? Some of those decisions were reversed. And then, you have to do it against the state legal advice, most probably. It's recorded the MMKN. So, it's a dicey issue. Nevertheless, I'm not saying that I'm happy. I think it takes a lot of courage and firmness. Yes, it's true, but you can't bring them in the capacity, their personal capacity. The decision was done by the state exco. Whether or not, but that's the thing, you see, this is the nitty-gritty, because those cases have to be taken by the, state legal advisor and so on and so forth. So, that's why I think, had it been in a different circumstance, different people would have done it differently. To me, I would have looked at the merit of every case, and if I think it's worth pursuing, even with the risk, the financial risk, I most probably would have done it. But different people took things differently, and at the party level, when this happens, say for example, PKR has a different view about the South Island reclamation. So beyond that, managing the decision making internally, when the one with local standi, in this case the Menteri Besar on Negeri Sembilan and the Chief Minister of Penang, when they make decision collectively at the exco, which is empowered, and the exco basically, while they represent the party, they also, have their local standi as part of the state administration. The line that has not been crossed is that when that happened, what do you do next? Because you remember, in 2014, we did sack a Menteri Besar. Yep. because of some of the decisions that we disagree, we basically pay, we take into account the public views, either Masa Kidex and a few others, and also some other evidence. We did sack Commander Izzah. And this is the bit that I can tell the public. Either way, we will not win. If we take the high road of really sticking to principle line, people say Kajang move and so on. If we don't do it, people say you don't. So, after 10, 15 years, we have to try to balance. And I think a lot of this issue actually is an issue of not just about the party policy, but putting people who are closer to the ground in the right places, because you have to trust the individuals who are interested, because once they make the decision usually drags, and that's what we are seeing now. So going forward, my view is that's why candidate selection, putting the right people in the right government office, so that they exercise caution, they understand enough why they are being put there, and then so that they take a bit more risk. Rather than just become an administrator, they also become political leader who make tough call. Those are safeguards for the future while we manage all these processes. But because the next line, once you have a disagreement between the party and what the respective state governments do, the next line is what? Disciplinary action? So those are the difficulties, So, and I think, PH or PKR are balancing it between that as well as the fact that it's about 2-3 months before election and so on. What I hope will continue is that at least the leadership of PKR does not bury our head in the sand and just evade the question or remain in total denial. But I'm also pragmatic enough to know that it's not something that can be turned off and turned off, turned on and turned off, as perhaps what the public wants. Because then the process ding-dong, and then so far, argument after arguments internally, you have this argument, the state government has a different argument, and then you bring another argument and so on. Then we'll see how it goes from now, So we've been going through this over and over. Sometimes it drags, but hopefully in the future, let's hope that whoever who are put in public office understands their so-called public duty a lot more than, and therefore that will put more, make them bolder in sometimes taking some risk. Question about orang muda and so on. You will not like what I say before I say it. I actually have slightly different view about people in politics when you start in politics. When I was young, I was given opportunity, keep kicking and screaming, not because I wanted, because there's no one else who wanted to do it. I never planned to come into politics to have a responsibility at a young age. I wanted to learn more than anything else. So what I look for, and that's why I found home in PKR, it's not so much because, I was given the opportunity. It's not. It's because PKR has an environment that was conducive enough for people like me to contribute and to learn and to do and to test my limits. That was back then. So kalau apa-apa saya lagi bimbang, sebenarnya itu yang akan kita tangani melalui proses, dan proses itu sedang berjalan. Kalau yang lagi saya bimbang ialah kalau PKR sudah jadi parti yang lemau yang tidak bagi ruang kepada orang baru. And you know where I stand. I fought warlords, and I believe that any organisation can only survive kalau kita sediakan ruang dan environment itu supaya you can always bring new people, new ideas semua. Tapi saya juga, okay, this is where which you don't like me. I'm also very apprehensive if there is some sense of entitlement. Just kerana orang muda baru, you rasa lagi cerdik semua. And then walau sebab pakcik tu dia jaga cabang tu 20 tahun and dia kebetulan dia dapat taksi and you think you can do it better. I also have a problem with that because I went through all that. Sebab saya daripada usia muda jadi ketua cabang, jadi pimpinan pusat and so on. What I realized is this. There were things I could do, but there were certain things I couldn't do. Kalau tidak kerana pakcik bawa taksi 20 tahun, sanggup buat kerja itu, I wouldn't have had the party that I can inherit now. So, you know, it's about balancing that. Kan? Jadi, kalau nasihat saya lah, kata semangat, remember this, bila kita masuk politik ataupun kita tawarkan diri untuk berkhidmat, kan? Bila kita dapat tanggungjawab itu, selalunya peluang itu hanya datang sekali. Corporate world, when I run my company, to the young people whom I recruited, you usually only get the chance once. The younger you are, the sooner you get the opportunity. If you are not ready, the sooner you screw up. The moment you screw up, you will never get it again because people will remember it. And people will always say, aku dah dulu try dah, tak jadi. It backfires. Sebab itu kalau nasihat saya, as best as possible, go in with the capacity and intention to learn and to contribute. If you can avoid getting the responsibility, avoid it. Because maybe you need a bit more time to learn. And so that's why I say most people will not like it. What you want is an environment where your views and your contribution has a place. And itu bukan bermakna hanya kena jadi ketua, wakil rakyat, menteri baru boleh dia menyumbang. In fact, that is scary. Kalau orang muda kata, saya nak masuk gini, tapi saya tidak dijadikan calon. Jadi I have a problem. Because when I started from London, I did everything unimaginable to you guys now because I couldn't care less about what I got. I was basically in London. I just wanted to help. Masa itu contohnya, masalah utama in 98, 99, TV3 lah tak ada berita. Berita tak sampai kepada orang. Yeah, I was an accountant, but I graduated with a degree in engineering. I went back to my books and learned coding walaupun aku benci gila coding dekat university. That's the subject aku paling benci sekali. I learned coding because I knew one contribution that I could do is to run websites and to write. So I run websites. I couldn't care less. It's because I was doing it for free out of nowhere. Then people realize there's someone in London who's doing it for free and he's out of ISA clutch because they could not get him there. So, you know, whatever I progress in the party is nothing kerana saya nak jadi calon, I just wanted to give some of my time to contribute. And that recognition will come by itself. Okay. Ini masalah yang selalunya orang tak boleh terima lah. Because orang kata, you senang lah, you dah dapat. It's actually not. So if, I say the same thing internally to yang dalam AMK dan sebagainya. I mean, I came from a different generation. I look at things differently. Maybe because I'm a professional, then I don't depend my livelihood on politics kan. Tapi sama juga konsep yang sama juga di tempat kerja. Saya tengok, and this is my rule of thumb, bila saya assess talents for me to promote, all those years from my corporate years, I will be very careful when people really want the position. Because the good ones usually are so busy doing their job, trying their best to do their job, they didn't even realize that they deserve something better. They get spotted because they do such a good job, not because they were jumping to be noted. So, in that sense, I'm quite old school. And the reason I have that position, because I am the beneficiary of being put in a leadership position daripada company. I wish I wasn't, because it's difficult. Sometimes we are ill prepared. I have to learn on the fly. There were many things that I wish I could have done better. So, if you have the opportunity to learn and the party allows it, learn. If you are good, inshallah, time will come. My job is to make sure that PKR's processes and environment allows for that to happen. And if we are successful and we can allow it, when the time comes, those who have to go will have to go. Sometimes, yang rasa dia hebat, tapi if it's not your time yet, it's also a test. And after all, I didn't, I'm the first generation of so-called PKR reformist leaders, sekali dengan Izzah semua. I didn't stand in 2008. I had to be dragged kicking and screaming out of corporate to come back to the party. I only stood in 2013. They were people, and I wouldn't name names lah. They were my juniors in the party, yang sekarang ini juga, junior, tapi dia menang dulu 2008 sebelum saya. Some of them kan. And some of them ni professionals and so on, and sebelum dia buat keputusan letak jawatan and so on kan. I advise them exactly the same thing in 2005. Kalau boleh, janganlah letak jawatan, tak kerja, buat politik 100%. Kalau boleh, become a professional, learn something, and then masa malam, pergilah tolong parti and so on. Because you have to bring something to the table. You cannot tell people, saya nak membantu negara, tapi sebab saya join politik muda, saya tahu politik je lah. Saya tak tahu benda lain. You actually have to bring some skill to the table. So go and work first. Some of them marah lah. Some of them tak setuju, kata apalah you takut lah, you jealous lah, and so on. And it's only in 2008, after they won, some of them came back to me, you were right, it's a lot harder than what I thought. Because it requires some maturity, it requires some real knowledge, it requires skills kan. So use the time. Is a generational change. Orang macam saya memang ada masalah. We have our work cut out because we have to make sure that pimpinan yang ada, bukan saja dalam PKR, tapi juga that's why we are fighting UMNO, fighting PAS semua ni. We want to make sure paling kurang the leadership of political parties di Malaysia ni actually tak adalah ketinggalan zaman sangat. I mean, it must reflect the population lah. If the bulk of the population is below 50s, at least, those who have been around for forever, there must be a process to go through it. Again, so in the case of Malaysia contohnya, saya tak rasa UMNO ke PAS ke Bersatu can continue like this forever. Especially bila contohnya PKR are very young. Except Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, we are all 40s. In fact, I'm the oldest. Apart from Amin, Menteri Besar kan. Actually, in terms of all the PKR leadership, I'm considered very old, 45. I mean, Izzah is like 3 years my junior, other one lain 5-6 years my junior kan. Jadi, I don't think UMNO, PAS ataupun Bersatu boleh bertahan kalau nak debat, contohnya saya mewakili PKR, tengok orang umur 80 mewakili UMNO, I cannot pass. There will come a point when they realize that they have to change juga. So, that's part and parcel what we are doing. Tapi dalam parti, we'll try our best to make sure that the level playing field semua, so long as you understand what is important is the environment that you are allowed to grow. Whether or not the time has come, hopefully you allow the process and some of the wisdom that we have to see. Because my job is also to make sure that I don't burn you earlier on. Because if you are fielded when you are not ready and you only have that one chance, dulu lain. Dulu zaman Izzah semua, dulu tak ada orang nak bertanding. So you bertanding sekali, 2 kali, kalah tak apa, bertanding lagi. Or you jadi wakil rakyat sekali, lepas tu you tak bagus, you boleh kekal lagi. Things are very competitive nowadays. And PKR is a very mainstream party. It's one of the largest party. So, pertandingan semua tu. So, kalau you nak ready sama ada, you tak bersedia dengan kelayakan, orang buat lawak, people hate you, it burns you way before your time. So, it's my job to make sure that we balance between giving the opportunity and not burning talents before your time. And it's in the progress, it's a work in progress. So, saya pun dah lambat, because I have to rush to Perak after this. So I think we call it a day. Thank you very much. Oh ada sikit lah. Aku sebenarnya nak kencing, tapi tak apalah, tak lama kan. You don't know how it is to sit here for the last 3 hours. So I think we'll close with a simple ceremony because I think there are some students who would want to bring Ayu Malaysia to university and so on. So I'll pass to Aziz.
Thank you so much, Saudara Rafizi. So saya ambil seminit saja. Saya juga nak mempromosikan kepada rakan-rakan yang dah bertown hall selama 3 jam ini untuk turut membantu kita membuat gerak kerja pilihan raya, menjadi pacar, menjadi sukarelawan untuk phone bank, menelefon rakan-rakan pengundi atas pagar, boleh scan kod di luar sana. Dan juga kita dari unit latihan dan juga sukarelawan Ayuh Malaysia telah menubuhkan satu tim Ayuh Mahasiswa untuk sebagai satu support team untuk membawa rakan-rakan kita yang mahasiswa untuk turut membantu gerak kerja lapangan pilihan raya. Jadi saya jemput rakan-rakan untuk kata pentas, bawa sekali lebih untuk Saudara Rafizi. Kita pegang plakat and untuk tujuan promosi.
I'm so anti-protocol. Anything that is considered quite feudal.
Untuk yang ni.
Okay, so pegang plakat.
Ya, plakat saja. Itu plakat. Okay.
Sabar, pegang plakat.
Yep. That's it.
Cepat, nak kecil.
Ada. It's that. Alright, should be okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.